Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the Vector Master, the Accelerator who defied physics. Naruto x Misaka Mikoto, a certain magical index. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Reflection. The kunai sliced through the air, headed straight for Naruto's face. He didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. The weapon stopped an inch from his skin, hung suspended for a heartbeat, then shot back exactly the way it came, twice as fast. Crap. Mizuki ducked, the kunai embedding itself in the academy wall behind him. How do you keep doing that? Naruto Uzumaki, age 12, stood in the middle of the training ground with his hands shoved deep in his pockets. His spiky blonde hair caught the afternoon sun, and the whisker marks on his cheeks creased as he grinned. Dunno. Just happens. He shrugged, kicking at the dirt. Throw another one. No way. Iruka-sensei will kill me if I keep losing kunai. Mizuki approached cautiously, keeping a safe distance. Look, you need to get this under control before graduation tomorrow. You can't just reflect everything that comes near you. I'm trying, okay? Naruto's smile faltered. It's not like there's anyone who can teach me. That was the problem. No one in Konoha had ever seen abilities like his. He couldn't perform standard jutsu, couldn't even channel chakra the normal way. Instead, since he was 5 years old, things just bounced off him. Rocks, weapons, even people who got too close too fast. The Hokage had classified his ability as a bloodline limit, but that was just a convenient explanation for something nobody understood. Mizuki sighed, checking his watch. Just try to focus on turning it off during the exam tomorrow. You need to hit the targets yourself, not reflect other people's throws. Yeah. Naruto waved him off, then turned toward the academy building. A group of students stood watching from a distance. The moment he looked their way, they scattered. Always the same. Nobody wanted to get too close to the kid who might accidentally send you flying across the village. Naruto sat on the swing outside the academy, watching families congratulate their graduated children. He fingered the empty space on his forehead where a headband should have been. Failed again, huh? He didn't need to look up to know the third Hokage had approached. Wasn't my fault this time. Naruto kicked at the dirt. I actually hit the target with my throw, but when Iruka-sensei tossed me the headband, it bounced off and knocked out Kiba. The old man chuckled, the sound warm despite the circumstances. Your ability is getting stronger. That's the problem. I don't want it stronger. I want it controllable. Naruto finally looked up. Everyone's afraid of me. The Hokage's face softened. I received an interesting proposal today. Have you ever heard of Academy City? That place east of the Land of Fire? The one with all the weird tech. The same. They specialize in studying and developing abilities not unlike yours. The Hokage handed him a pamphlet with gleaming skyscrapers and strange machines. They've heard about you and proposed an exchange program. One of their students comes here, you go there for 6 months. Naruto's eyes widened. They have people like me? Not exactly like you. But similar enough that they might help you gain control. The Hokage placed a hand on his shoulder, careful not to move too quickly. You'd learn from Esper development researchers while representing Konoha as a diplomat. Naruto stared at the pamphlet. People who might understand him. People who wouldn't be afraid. When do I leave? 2 days later, Naruto stood at Konoha's gates, a small backpack slung over his shoulder. The Hokage and Iruka-sensei had come to see him off, along with the representatives from Academy City, 2 men in pristine white lab coats who kept staring at him. Like he was some rare insect. Remember, you're representing the hidden leaf, Iruka said, adjusting Naruto's collar. Try not to accidentally reflect anyone important. I'll work on it. Naruto grinned, then hesitated. Will the other student be okay here? Since, they don't have ninja training. One of the Academy City researchers laughed. Misaka-san is a level 5 Electromaster. I wouldn't worry about her safety. The other man nodded. She'll arrive next week. A prodigy even among espers. Level 5? Naruto asked. The highest classification for esper abilities, the first man explained. Only 7 level 5s exist in Academy City. Misaka Mikoto is the third ranked among them. Great. They were trading a village pariah for a super prodigy. Naruto tried not to feel inadequate. And what level would Naruto be in your system? The Hokage asked. The researchers exchanged looks. Based on the data you've shared, his ability to manipulate vectors would classify as level 4, possibly level 5 with proper development. It's similar to our current rank 1, Accelerator, though the origin appears completely different. Naruto perked up. Someone else had his ability. The car is waiting, the second researcher said, checking his watch. We should depart if we want to reach Academy City by nightfall. Naruto nodded, suddenly nervous. He'd never left the village before. Don't worry, Iruka said quietly. 6 months will pass before you know it. The Hokage handed him a scroll. A communication line. Report weekly. With a final wave, Naruto followed the researchers toward the strangest vehicle he'd ever seen, a long black car with windows so dark he couldn't see inside. One of the men opened the door, and Naruto hesitated only briefly before climbing in. The interior was cool and smelled like leather. The seats were softer than anything he'd sat on before. As the car pulled away, Naruto pressed his face to the window, watching Konoha recede into the distance. For better or worse, his life was about to change completely. Academy City was nothing like Konoha. Buildings stretched toward the sky, made of glass and steel instead of wood and stone. Strange vehicles zipped along smooth roads, and robots, actual robots, swept the sidewalks and delivered packages. This is insane, Naruto muttered as the car wound through traffic. How many people live here? 2.3 million, the researcher, who'd introduced himself as Dr. Tanaka, replied. 80% are students developing esper abilities. The car pulled up to a massive compound surrounded by security gates. Signs warned of experimental testing and restricted access. Welcome to the Esper Development Research Center, Dr. Tanaka said as they stepped out. You'll be staying in the dormitories on the east side, but first, we'd like to conduct some preliminary tests. Naruto followed them through security checkpoints into a building that smelled like antiseptic. The halls were lined with laboratories where students sat with electrodes attached to their heads or manipulated objects without touching them. They entered a large room with reinforced walls. In the center stood a petite girl with short brown hair wearing a school uniform with shorts underneath. She was facing away from them, hands on her hips. Ah, perfect timing, Dr. Tanaka said. Naruto, this is Misaka Mikoto, the level 5 who will be going to Konoha. Misaka-san, this is, the Vector Kid, she finished, turning around. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. They've been talking about you all week. Naruto stared. She looked completely normal, no special equipment, no obvious signs of power. You're the Electromaster. A smirk crossed her face. She flicked her hand, and a coin soared into the air. A flash of blue-white lightning erupted from her bangs, striking the coin and accelerating it toward the reinforced wall. The impact left a smoking crater in the metal. That's my rail gun, she said, dusting her hands. I hear you can reflect attacks. Before anyone could stop her, she sent a small bolt of electricity toward him. Naruto didn't have time to react, didn't need to. The electricity stopped an inch from his chest and redirected straight back at her. She yelped, diving to the side as it struck the wall behind her. Misaka-san. Dr. Tanaka scolded. That was reckless. She picked herself up, brushing off her skirt with a gleam in her eyes. Automatic reflection. Just like Accelerator, but the field isn't visible. She stepped closer, circling Naruto like he was a puzzle. Can you turn it off? Not really, Naruto admitted. It's mostly automatic. Fascinating. She reached toward his face, moving slowly. Her fingertip stopped an inch from his cheek, pushing against an invisible barrier. It responds to velocity. If I move slowly enough. She pressed forward gently, and her fingers touched his skin. Naruto froze. No one had touched him without being repelled in years. You need fine control training, she declared, stepping back. Your ability is wasted if it's just running on autopilot. That's why he's here, Dr. Tanaka interjected. And why you're going to Konoha, to experience different power development systems. Misaka rolled her eyes. I still think this exchange is stupid. What am I supposed to learn from ninjas throwing stars at each other? Dr. Tanaka sighed. Your flight leaves tomorrow morning. Please try to keep an open mind. She scoffed but nodded. Fine. I've got packing to finish anyway. She turned to Naruto with an appraising look. Don't let them push you around, Vector Boy. The scientists here can get carried away with their experiments. With that parting warning, she strode from the room, electricity occasionally crackling in her wake. She's intense, Naruto said. Misaka-san is brilliant but headstrong, Dr. Tanaka replied. Now, shall we begin your assessment? The tests were exhausting. They measured his reflection field, tested its limits with various projectiles and energy forms, took blood samples, brain scans, and made him try to consciously manipulate his ability over and over. By evening, Naruto collapsed on the bed in his assigned dormitory, muscles aching and head spinning with new terminology. Vector manipulation. AIM diffusion fields. Personal reality. The scientists spoke a language that made ninja techniques seem straightforward by comparison. The dorm was sparse but comfortable, bed, desk, private bathroom, and a window overlooking a courtyard where students practiced their abilities. Naruto watched a boy create ice crystals in midair while another levitated small objects. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. A tall, lanky scientist with rectangular glasses peeked in. Uzumaki-san. I'm Dr. Kihara Amada. I've been assigned as your primary researcher. He entered without waiting for permission, carrying a tablet. I reviewed today's results. Your vector field is remarkable, far more comprehensive than our calculations suggested. Naruto sat up. Does that mean you can help me control it? Control it? Why would you want that? Kihara's eyes gleamed. Your automatic reflection is perfect. What we need to develop is your offensive capabilities. I don't want offensive capabilities. I want to touch people without sending them flying. Kihara waved dismissively. A trivial concern. Your ability to manipulate vectors has potential far beyond social interactions. He flicked through data on his tablet. With proper development, you could control the direction and magnitude of any force, gravity, momentum, electricity, heat. You could accelerate objects to devastating speeds or stop them entirely. The excitement in Kihara's voice made Naruto uneasy. I just want normal control. We'll start with the basics tomorrow, Kihara continued as if Naruto hadn't spoken. Simple vector redirection exercises, then move to conscious manipulation. He headed for the door. Rest well. Your training begins at 0800. After he left, Naruto flopped back onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. This place was supposed to help him fit in better, not turn him into a weapon. But that gleam in Kihara's eyes reminded him of looks he'd seen from certain Konoha elders, people who saw him as a tool rather than a person. He was beginning to think this exchange might be more complicated than he'd expected. The next morning arrived with a blaring alarm. Naruto stumbled into the attached bathroom, splashing water on his face. A uniform had been left for him, white shirt, black pants, and a badge identifying him as a special research subject. Great. Not even a student. After a quick breakfast in the cafeteria, where other students gave him curious looks but kept their distance, Naruto was escorted to a massive underground facility. The room was cavernous with reinforced walls and various testing apparatus scattered throughout. Kihara waited in the center, surrounded by assistants with monitoring equipment. Ah, right on time. We'll begin with a simple exercise. He pointed to a table covered with tennis balls. Try to consciously reflect these at specific targets. One of the assistants used a machine to launch tennis balls toward Naruto. As expected, they bounced off his field in random directions. You're not trying, Kihara said. Focus on the vectors, the direction and force. Visualize redirecting them. I am trying. Naruto snapped as another ball bounced wildly. It's not that easy. Perhaps a different approach. Kihara gestured, and the assistants wheeled out what looked like a cannon. This fires compressed air. Your reflection field stops physical objects, but can it handle pure force? Before Naruto could protest, they fired. The invisible blast hit his field, and for the first time in years, Naruto felt pressure against his skin. Not pain, but definite pressure, as his field struggled to calculate the vectors of something without mass. Interesting. Kihara scribbled notes. Your field adapted, but required conscious adjustment. That's our way in. For the next 3 hours, they bombarded Naruto with various forms of energy, air pressure, sound waves, heat, forcing his reflection field to adapt. By noon, Naruto could feel the difference. His field wasn't just reflecting automatically, he was beginning to sense the calculations happening, the minute adjustments as different forces interacted with his ability. Enough. Kihara finally called. You're making excellent progress, but we don't want to strain your ability on the first day. Naruto collapsed onto a bench, sweat dripping down his face. This is harder than any training I did in Konoha. Because you're using your mind, not just your body. Kihara handed him a towel. Your ability stems from your personal reality, your brain's ability to rewrite physics on a microscopic scale around your body. In Konoha, they just called it a bloodline limit. Kihara scoffed. Primitive explanation. Your power is calculation, the automatic mathematical processing of vectors in real time. He studied Naruto with unsettling intensity. With proper development, you could become more powerful than Accelerator himself. Who is this Accelerator guy, anyway? Everyone keeps comparing me to him. Academy City's strongest level 5. His vector manipulation is absolute, he can reflect any attack, accelerate objects to devastating speeds, even control plasma and bioelectricity. Kihara's eyes gleamed. But unlike you, he lacks the natural integration with bodily energy your ninja world calls chakra. You represent a fascinating hybrid. That explained the scientist's interest, but not the almost predatory enthusiasm Kihara displayed. Go rest, Kihara said. Tomorrow, we try conscious vector projection. As Naruto headed back to his dorm, he couldn't shake the feeling he was being assessed as a weapon rather than helped as a person. The next few days fell into a routine. Mornings were spent with Kihara and his team, pushing the limits of Naruto's vector field. Afternoons involved academic catch-up. Academy City required even special research subjects to maintain educational standards. By the 4th day, Naruto could consciously direct reflected objects toward specific targets. By the 6th, he could adjust the force of his reflection, either amplifying or reducing the rebound effect. Excellent! Kihara exclaimed when Naruto caught a ball instead of reflecting it by minimizing his field at the precise moment of contact. Now try projecting your field. Projecting. Extending your calculation area beyond your body. Kihara pointed to a target several meters away. Push the vectors of air molecules in that direction. Naruto frowned, concentrating on the space between himself and the target. Nothing happened. "You're thinking too directly," Kihara advised. "Your power isn't telekinesis. You manipulate existing forces. Start with something already in motion, then redirect it." One of the assistants activated a fan, creating a steady breeze across the room. Naruto focused on the moving air, visualizing the invisible vectors, trying to grab hold of their direction. For a brief moment, he felt something, like catching a thread between his fingers. The air current shifted, diverting toward the target. "There!" Kihara shouted. The sensors registered a deliberate vector shift. Naruto grinned, sweat beading on his forehead. It was a small achievement, but the first time he'd consciously projected his ability outward instead of just reflecting what came at him. By the end of the first week, Naruto could redirect light objects at a distance and dampen his reflection field enough that people could touch him without being repelled, as long as he concentrated on maintaining control. Progress felt good, but exhaustion was taking its toll. Each night, Naruto collapsed into bed, too tired even to explore the city. His only breaks were the brief messages he sent to the Hokage via the communication scroll, reporting his progress without mentioning his growing unease about Kihara's motives. On the 8th day, everything changed. Naruto was eating lunch alone in the cafeteria when a group of students approached his table. Their uniforms bore patches identifying them as Judgment, the student disciplinary committee. "You're the exchange student from the ninja village, right?" A girl with flowers in her hair leaned forward, examining him. "The vector manipulator." Naruto nodded warily. "That's me. I'm Ueharu, this is Satan and Kuriko." She pointed to her companions, a tall girl with long black hair and a shorter one with pigtails. "We're from Branch 177 of Judgment. Are you here to arrest me or something?" The girls laughed. "No, silly," Satan said. "We're friends with Misaka. She asked us to check on you before she left." That surprised him. "Misaka was worried about me?" "Not exactly worried," Kuriko clarified, adjusting her armband. "She said, and I quote, make sure Vector Boy isn't being turned into a lab rat. She can be oddly protective of fellow ability users. She sensed something off about Dr. Kihara," Ueharu added, lowering her voice. "And we've heard rumors about his research methods." Naruto set down his chopsticks. "What kind of rumors?" The girls exchanged glances. Satan leaned in. He was involved in the level 6 shift project, an experiment that tried to evolve Accelerator to level 6 by having him kill 20,000 clones of a level 5. "What?" Naruto nearly shouted. "It was shut down," Kuriko said quickly. "But Kihara's research has always pushed ethical boundaries. The only reason he's still employed is his genius in Esper development." Ueharu pulled out a card, sliding it across the table. "If you need help, contact us. We can't interfere with authorized research, but we can make sure protocols are being followed." Naruto pocketed the card, suddenly not hungry. "Thanks." After the girls left, Naruto sat quietly, processing the information. If what they said was true, Kihara's interest in his vector manipulation took on a more sinister dimension. He needed to be more careful about what he revealed in training. "Again!" Kihara ordered, his excitement barely contained. Naruto stood in the center of the testing chamber, sweat dripping from his chin. For the past 3 hours, he'd been practicing vector projection, stopping projectiles before they reached his personal field by manipulating their vectors at a distance. It was working. 5 meters out, he could now halt tennis balls mid-air, then send them flying in any direction he chose. The control was exhilarating, but the intensity of Kihara's interest was increasingly disturbing. "Let's increase difficulty." Kihara nodded to his assistants, who loaded a new projectile into the launcher. A weighted ball with an unpredictable trajectory. The machine fired. Naruto tracked the zigzagging ball, calculations flooding his mind automatically. He reached out mentally, grabbing its vectors, the ball stopped dead in the air, then shot toward a target on the far wall, striking it perfectly center. Kihara clapped. Magnificent. Your calculation speed is improving exponentially. He made notes on his tablet. Tomorrow we move to phase 2, vector insertion. Vector what? Naruto asked, toweling off his face. The ability to insert vectors where none existed before, creating motion from stillness. Kihara's eyes gleamed. It's how Accelerator can cause explosions by manipulating the vectors in seemingly stable matter. The comparison to Accelerator again. Naruto was beginning to think Kihara saw him as nothing more than a replacement for the other vector manipulator. I think I've had enough for today, Naruto said. I wanted to explore the city a bit. Kihara frowned but nodded. Very well. But first, one more scan. He guided Naruto to a machine that resembled an MRI but smaller. This measures your AIM diffusion field, the invisible energy your Esper ability produces. Naruto lay down as the machine hummed around him. Through the viewing window, he saw Kihara's expression shift from interest to shock as data filled his screens. When the scan finished, Naruto sat up. Everything okay? Kihara composed himself quickly. Perfectly fine. Your field is simply unique. The interaction between your chakra system and Esper abilities creates patterns I've never seen. His casual tone didn't match the intensity in his eyes. Naruto remembered the Judgment Girl's warning and felt a chill. I'll see you tomorrow, then, Naruto said, heading for the door before Kihara could suggest more tests. Once outside, he took his first real breath of Academy City air, determined to experience something beyond laboratory walls. The city bustled with energy, students rushing between classes, research facilities humming with activity, and autonomous robots performing various functions. Naruto wandered the streets, absorbing the sights and sounds of this technological wonder. In a park, he paused to watch Esper students practicing. A boy created small flames in his palm while a girl nearby manipulated water droplets into complex shapes. You're the Vector Kid, aren't you? A voice interrupted his observations. Naruto turned to find a high school student with white hair and red eyes watching him with bored interest. The boy wore a black and white striped shirt and had a choker around his neck with a battery attachment. Yeah, that's me, Naruto replied cautiously. And you are? Accelerator. The boy's voice was disinterested, but his eyes were sharp. I hear Kihara's taken a special interest in you. So this was the infamous Accelerator, Academy City's strongest Esper. He looked ordinary enough, even frail, but Naruto sensed dangerous power beneath the surface. He's helping me control my ability, Naruto said neutrally. Accelerator scoffed. Kihara doesn't help anyone without helping himself more. He stepped closer, examining Naruto with clinical detachment. Your vector field is different from mine. Rougher. Less calculated. I've only been training it for a week. That's not what I mean. Accelerator reached out lazily, his finger stopping against Naruto's field. Yours isn't pure calculation. It's mixed with something else, something organic. Chakra, probably. It's what powers abilities in my world. Interesting. Accelerator withdrew his hand. Be careful with Kihara. He'll push until you break, then keep pushing to see what's left. The warning was delivered with such casual indifference that its sincerity caught Naruto off guard. Why tell me this? A shadow crossed Accelerator's face. Because I've been his lab rat before. He turned away. If you're smart, you'll set boundaries now. If not. He shrugged. Well, good luck with that. Naruto watched him walk away, unsettled by the encounter. 2 warnings in one day, both about Kihara. Neither the Judgment Girls nor Accelerator seemed the type to exaggerate threats. He needed to be more strategic about his training. When Naruto returned to the research facility the next morning, he found Kihara in an animated discussion with two men in military uniforms. They fell silent when he entered. "Ah, Uzumaki-san. Right on time." Kihara dismissed the military officials with a nod. "Today we begin offense training." Naruto remained near the door. "Actually, I wanted to discuss the training schedule. I'd like to spend more time exploring Academy City and less time in the lab." Kihara's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That would be inefficient. Your development is progressing rapidly, and any interruption would be counterproductive." "It's not a request," Naruto said firmly. The exchange agreement specified cultural exposure, not just ability development. A flash of annoyance crossed Kihara's face before he masked it. "Of course. Perhaps a compromise, mornings in the lab, afternoons for cultural activities." Naruto nodded, relieved the confrontation hadn't escalated. "That works. Excellent. Now, shall we begin? Today's focus is creating vectors rather than redirecting existing ones." The training was more intense than previous sessions. Kihara pushed him to manipulate stationary objects, creating motion where none existed by inserting directional force. By noon, Naruto could make small pebbles slide across the floor without touching them. "Your progress is remarkable," Kihara said as they concluded. "Most espers take years to develop this level of control." Naruto wiped sweat from his brow. "It still feels unstable." "That's the chakra component," Kihara mused. "It adds unpredictability but also raw power." He checked his watch. "As agreed, you're free for the afternoon. But first, I'd like to introduce you to someone." He led Naruto to a conference room where a teenage boy waited. He had spiky black hair and wore a high school uniform. "This is Kamiju Toma," Kihara introduced. "He possesses an ability called Imagine Breaker, which cancels other esper abilities. I thought testing your vector field against his negation would be informative." Toma stood, extending his right hand. "Nice to meet you. Don't worry, I'll be careful with the cancellation." Naruto shook his hand cautiously, ready for his reflection field to activate against a sudden movement. But when their hands touched, he felt a strange disruption, like static in his mind, before his field stabilized again. "Fascinating," Kihara murmured, observing readings on his tablet. "Your field automatically recalculated around the disruption. Accelerator's field would have been completely negated by Imagine Breaker." Toma looked surprised. "That's never happened before. Usually, my right hand completely dispels abilities it touches." "The chakra component must provide continuous recalculation," Kihara theorized. "Even when the calculation is disrupted, the natural energy maintains field integrity until calculations can resume." He was speaking about Naruto as if he weren't present, a habit that increasingly grated on the young ninja's nerves. "If that's all, I'll be going," Naruto said pointedly. Kihara waved dismissively, already deep in conversation with his assistants about the implications of the test. Toma followed Naruto into the hallway. "Sorry about that. The researchers get carried away sometimes." "You get used to it," Naruto replied. "No, you don't." Toma's voice held a hint of bitterness. "Listen, some friends and I are getting food at Joseph's restaurant later. You should join us. Might be nice to talk to people who don't see you as a research subject." Naruto hesitated, then nodded. Human interaction outside the lab sounded perfect. "I'd like that." Joseph's restaurant was a casual diner filled with students. Naruto followed Toma to a booth where 3 girls were already seated, a tiny nun in a white habit, a middle school girl with flowers in her hair, and a familiar face. "Index, Ueharu, you've met Misaka already," Toma introduced. "This is Naruto, the exchange student from the ninja village." "Vector boy." Misaka exclaimed, looking genuinely surprised. "I thought you'd be locked in Kihara's lab for the duration." "I managed to negotiate some free time," Naruto replied, sliding into the booth. Index, the small nun, peered at him curiously. You have strange energy. Not quite magical, not quite scientific. That's chakra, Ueharu explained. From what Misaka told us, it's like a natural form of AIM diffusion field. Toma signaled a waitress. Let's order first, theorize second. After they ordered, conversation flowed more naturally. Naruto learned that Toma was notorious for having the worst luck in Academy City, that Index had a perfect memory for magical texts, and that Ueharu and Misaka were still in contact despite Misaka's assignment to Konoha. How's she doing, anyway? Naruto asked Ueharu. Complaining constantly, Ueharu giggled, checking her phone. But her messages have gotten less angry. She's actually impressed by some of the jutsu she's seen. Misaka rolled her eyes. She's just being polite. There's no way throwing fireballs compares to precision electromastery. Different doesn't mean inferior, Toma pointed out. From what I understand, ninja abilities are more versatile, if less specialized. Exactly, Naruto agreed. Most jonin can use multiple elements and techniques. Here, everyone seems focused on developing a single ability to its limit. That's Academy City's approach, Misaka explained. Maximum development of personal reality within focused parameters. Their food arrived, massive burgers and fries that made Naruto realize how much he missed Ichiraka ramen. As they ate, the conversation shifted to Naruto's training. Kihara's pushing you hard? Misaka asked between bites. Naruto nodded. He seems fixated on making me master offensive vector control. Toma and Misaka exchanged glances. That's concerning, Toma said. Kihara's research tends to focus on weaponization potential. The military guys I saw him with this morning would support that theory, Naruto mused. Military? Misaka set down her burger. That's definitely not part of a standard exchange program. What exactly did Kihara say the next phase of your training involves? Ueharu asked. Vector insertion and then something called plasma manipulation. Index dropped her fork. That's advanced weapons research. Similar abilities have been used to create citywide destruction in the past. You need to be careful, Misaka warned. Kihara won't hesitate to push beyond safe limits if he thinks your ability has military applications. Naruto felt a chill. The warning aligned with everything he'd observed. What should I do? I still have over 5 months here. Keep training, but selectively, Toma advised. Learn control techniques, but be mysteriously incompetent at anything with obvious weaponization potential. And spend as much time outside the lab as possible, Ueharu added. The more people who know you, the harder it is to disappear you into some classified project. Disappear me? Naruto's eyes widened. It's happened before, Misaka said quietly. Promising espers vanishing into special research programs then emerging months later with no memories and different abilities. The food suddenly tasted like ash in Naruto's mouth. He'd come to Academy City for help, not to become a weapon. I'll be careful, he promised. True to his word, Naruto became strategic about his training. He excelled at defensive applications but struggled, coincidentally, whenever Kihara pushed toward military applications. He spent afternoons exploring the city, making connections with students from various schools and branches of judgment. 2 weeks into this approach, Kihara's frustration became palpable. You're holding back, he accused during a particularly unsuccessful attempt at vector-based plasma generation. Your calculations were perfect last week, but now you can't maintain basic field stability. Naruto feigned confusion. I'm trying my best. Maybe my chakra is fluctuating. Kihara's eyes narrowed. Perhaps we need to try a different approach. He signaled an assistant, who wheeled in what looked like a modified MRI machine. This will help stabilize your field by synchronizing your brainwaves with a computational model. The machine looked ominous. I don't think it's perfectly safe, Kihara interrupted. A simple calibration procedure. Naruto backed toward the door. I'm not comfortable with brain calibration. Let's stick to the current training methods. This isn't optional, Uzumaki-san. Kihara's friendly facade dropped completely. Your development has plateaued, and the research parameters require consistent progress. My development is my choice, Naruto said firmly. And I choose to leave for the day. Kihara's face hardened. I'm afraid that's not possible. He pressed a button on his tablet, and metal shutters slammed down over the doors and windows. Your vector manipulation ability is too valuable to be wasted on trivial control exercises. Alarm bells rang in Naruto's mind. This was exactly what the others had warned him about. The Hokage knows I'm here, Naruto warned. If I don't report in, your weekly communication has already been handled, Kihara said with a thin smile. A perfect digital reproduction of your writing style, assuring them everything is proceeding normally. Cold dread washed over Naruto. He'd been too complacent, thinking his position as an exchange student protected him. Now, Kihara continued, we can proceed voluntarily, or we can use chemical assistance to ensure cooperation. Your choice. Naruto assessed his options quickly. The room was sealed, with 6 research assistants and Kihara blocking the path to the main door. His vector field could protect him from physical attacks, but not if he was sedated first. He needed to create an opening. Fine, he conceded, approaching the machine slowly. But I want to understand how it works first. Kihara relaxed slightly, launching into a technical explanation of neural pathway modification. As he spoke, Naruto focused intensely on his vector field, pushing it outward incrementally as he'd been practicing. Which allows for precision adjustments to your personal reality without invasive. Kihara stopped mid-sentence, noticing the subtle distortion of air around Naruto. What are you doing? Naruto didn't answer. In one explosive motion, he expanded his vector field to its maximum range, sending a concussive wave outward that knocked everyone off their feet. Before they could recover, he redirected the vectors in the metal shutter, creating opposing forces that tore the barrier apart. Alarms blared as Naruto sprinted through the opening, redirecting the vectors in his legs to propel himself faster than he'd ever moved before. Security breach in Lab 7. Kihara's voice echoed over the intercom. Detain research subject Uzumaki immediately. Naruto tore through corridors, using his vector field to repel anyone who tried to intercept him. He needed to reach someone with authority, someone who could stop Kihara without causing an international incident. Remembering the judgment card in his pocket, he changed direction toward branch 177. Kuriko Shirai was filing paperwork when Naruto burst through the judgment office door, security alerts blaring on every screen. What have you done? She demanded, teleporting instantly to block his path. Kihara tried to forcibly modify my brain, Naruto gasped, hands on knees. He sealed the lab, said my weekly reports to Konoha had been faked. Uehara looked up from her computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. He's right. There's an unauthorized lockdown at the Esper Development Center, and, oh. Her eyes widened. There's a level 5 containment team being deployed. That's excessive for a simple security breach. Kuriko frowned, pressing her judgment communicator. This is Shirai from branch 177. We have the exchange student here. Situation appears to be a research ethics violation, not a security threat. She listened to the response, her frown deepening. Understood. She turned to Naruto. This is complicated. Kihara has filed for emergency research protocol activation, claiming your vector ability has become unstable and threatens the city. That's a lie. I believe you, she said calmly. But judgment doesn't have authority to countermand a level 5 emergency protocol. We need someone higher up. Uehara spun in her chair. I've contacted Anti-Skill and the board of directors, but it'll take time for them to review the case. Time we don't have, Kuriko muttered as the building's security alerts increased in urgency. They're tracking your location through the city's surveillance network, she told Naruto. You need to move. Where? I don't know this city well enough to hide. Kuriko and Miharu exchanged looks. There's one person who might help, Kuriko said reluctantly. But reaching him won't be easy. Who? Accelerator. As the one level 5, he has enough clout to challenge Kihara's emergency protocols. And as Kihara's former research subject, Miharu added, he has personal reasons to intervene. I met him briefly, Naruto said. But I have no idea where to find him. I do. Kuriko grabbed her judgment armband. But we need to move fast. Security forces will be here in minutes. She handed Naruto a student ID card. This will get you through standard security checkpoints. Head toward the school garden district, I'll meet you there with transportation. Naruto nodded, slipping the card into his pocket. Thanks. Don't thank me yet, Kuriko replied grimly. If we're wrong about Accelerator, we're both in serious trouble. The city had transformed from a place of wonder to a maze of threats. Security robots patrolled every intersection, and anti-skill officers checked IDs at major thoroughfares. Naruto kept to back alleys, using his vector manipulation to leap between buildings when necessary. The borrowed student ID got him through 2 checkpoints before an officer grew suspicious and called for verification. ID confirmation failed, the officer announced, reaching for restraints. Please remain still while, Naruto didn't wait for the rest. He pushed off with vector-enhanced speed, sending the officer stumbling backward as he fled down a service corridor. Halt or we will use force, another officer shouted, raising what looked like a specialized taser. When they fired, Naruto's reflection field activated automatically, sending the electrodes back toward their source. The officers dove for cover, giving him precious seconds to escape. He reached School Garden as darkness fell, an upscale district filled with elite girls' schools and exclusive shops. Kuriko was waiting in a service alley with what looked like a modified scooter. Anti-Skill has set up a perimeter around the district, she reported. They're treating this as a level 4 threat response. That seems excessive for one exchange student. It's not about you specifically, Kuriko explained, starting the scooter. It's about the precedent. If word gets out that Kihara was conducting unauthorized neural modification on an international exchange student, Academy City's reputation suffers. So they're covering it up. Some factions are. Others are trying to follow proper protocols. She handed him a helmet. Get on. We need to reach District 7 before they shut down civilian transportation. The scooter hummed quietly as they navigated back streets, avoiding main thoroughfares. Kuriko's judgment credentials got them through 2 security cordons, but at the third, the officer was unimpressed. All civilian movement has been restricted, he stated flatly. Even judgment requires special authorization during a level 4 response. This is an emergency mediation, Kuriko argued. We're transporting a witness to, no exceptions. The officer's hand moved to his weapon. Please dismount and present identification. Naruto tensed, ready to use his vectors to create an opening, but Kuriko subtly shook her head. Fighting anti-skill would only escalate the situation. Just as they were about to comply, a calm voice interrupted. They're with me. Accelerator stepped from the shadows, hands in pockets, expression bored. Board authorization code Alpha 709. The officer paled, immediately stepping aside. Yes, sir. My apologies. Once they were past the checkpoint, Kuriko let out a breath. How did you find us? Miharu contacted Last Order, who contacted me, Accelerator replied, referring to the small clone who lived with him. She was quite insistent I help the Vector Ninja. He turned to Naruto, eyes narrowing. Kihara's up to his old tricks. Naruto nodded grimly. Brain modification to weaponize my ability. Typical. Accelerator's voice held cold anger. He never learns. He gestured to a nondescript building. We need to move. This area won't stay clear for long. Inside, they found a sparse apartment where a small girl, who looked strikingly like a younger Misaka, waited anxiously. "You found him," says Misaka with relief, she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Last order," Accelerator introduced briefly. "She's part of the Misaka network and can access Academy City's security systems. The security parameters have been escalated to include vector-based countermeasures," reports Misaka with concern, the small girl informed them. "They're deploying capacity-down devices throughout the city." "Capacity down?" Naruto asked. "Technology that disrupts Esper abilities," Kuriko explained. "They're usually reserved for major threats." Accelerator sat at a computer terminal, typing rapidly. "Kihara's convinced someone important that your ability poses a citywide threat. We need to counter that narrative." "How?" "It's my word against his, and he's a respected researcher." "Not quite." Accelerator smirked. "Last order, show him what you found." The small girl nodded, connecting a device to the computer. The screen filled with research notes and video clips, Kihara discussing weaponization potential with military officials, notes about neural reconfiguration without subject consent, and plans labeled Vector Warfare Initiative. Kihara's been planning this for weeks, Kuriko realized, scanning the documents. The exchange program was just a cover to get access to your ability. He's been falsifying reports to both the Konoha authorities and the Academy City Board, Accelerator added. Classic Kihara, playing both sides for his own research. Naruto stared at the evidence, anger building. "How do we stop him?" "We take this to someone who can't be bought or intimidated." Accelerator stood. "The General Superintendent. Alistair Crowley." Kuriko looked shocked. "No one gets direct access to him." "I do," Accelerator said simply. "But reaching him won't be easy. Kihara's people will be watching every approach to the windowless building." Last order tugged at Accelerator's sleeve. Misaka suggests using the underground maintenance tunnels." "Too obvious," Accelerator replied. "But..." He turned to Naruto. "How precise is your vector control now?" "I can redirect most attacks and project force about 10 meters. "Good enough. We're going aerial." The plan was audacious. Using Accelerator's vector manipulation to launch them skyward and Naruto's reflection field to protect against countermeasures, they would approach the windowless building, Academy City's administrative center, from above, bypassing ground security entirely. "This is insane," Kuriko muttered as they gathered on a rooftop. "If either of your calculations fail, we become sidewalk decorations." "Stay here then," Accelerator said dismissively. "We only need the evidence." "I'm coming," she insisted. "My teleportation might be useful, and someone needs to represent judgment officially." Last order had stayed behind to monitor security channels and provide updates through a communication device. According to her reports, anti-skill had deployed around the windowless building in force. "Ready?" Accelerator asked, crouching slightly. Naruto nodded, focusing on expanding his vector field to encompass all three of them. "Field stable." Accelerator touched the rooftop, calculations running through his mind, then manipulated the vectors beneath them. The resulting force catapulted them skyward at tremendous speed, the city blurring beneath them. Anti-skill spotted them immediately. Warning sirens blared as defense systems activated. Missiles streaked toward their position, only to be deflected by the combined calculation power of two vector manipulators working in tandem. "Capacity down activating in sectors 7 through 12, last order's voice crackled over the communicator. Misaka warns you to adjust your trajectory." Accelerator grimaced as the disruptive frequency began affecting his calculations. "My precision is dropping." "I've got us," Naruto replied, finding that his chakra-based vectors remained largely unaffected by the technology designed to disrupt Esper abilities. He adjusted their descent vector, aiming for a maintenance platform halfway up the windowless building. They landed hard but safely, Kuriko teleporting at the last second to avoid impact. The interference is stronger here, Accelerator noted, touching his choker. My battery won't last long under these conditions. Kuriko pointed to a service entrance. According to the schematics Ueharu sent, this should lead to an auxiliary control center. The door was reinforced steel with an electronic lock. Accelerator placed his hand against it, manipulating the vectors within the metal until the lock mechanism shattered. Inside, they found a sterile corridor with multiple security checkpoints. Automated defense turrets activated at their approach. I'll handle these, Naruto said, stepping forward. He extended his vector field, catching the incoming projectiles and redirecting them back into the turrets, destroying them in a cascade of sparks. They progressed deeper into the building, Kuriko teleporting ahead to scout for human security. The further they went, the more Naruto realized the building's layout made no logical sense. Corridors that should connect looped back on themselves, rooms that seemed larger inside than their external dimensions allowed. It's designed to confuse intruders, Accelerator explained. The general superintendent values his privacy. After navigating what felt like a spatial maze, they reached an unmarked door that Accelerator approached with unusual caution. Beyond this point, reality gets flexible, he warned. Stay close and don't trust your perceptions. The door opened to reveal not another room but what appeared to be an infinite space filled with floating displays and swirling data. In the center, suspended in a tank of amber liquid, was a figure that defied easy description, neither clearly male nor female, seemingly ageless. Accelerator, the figure spoke without moving its lips, the voice emanating from everywhere at once. You bring interesting guests. Alistair, Accelerator acknowledged. We have evidence of unauthorized human experimentation by Kihara Amada on an international exchange subject. I am aware. The figure's eyes remained closed, but Naruto felt an intense scrutiny nonetheless. The Uzumaki vector manipulation experiment. Most intriguing results. Naruto stepped forward. You knew. I know all research conducted within Academy City, Alistair replied. The question is not what was done, but whether it exceeded authorized parameters. Kuriko produced the data device. These records show Kihara planned forced neural modification without consent, falsified reports to Konoha authorities, and initiated citywide security protocols under false pretenses. Alistair remained silent for a moment, data swirling more rapidly around the chamber. Correct on all counts. Kihara has become overzealous. Again. Will you stop him? Naruto demanded. The exchange program was meant to foster understanding between our worlds, not weaponize their differences, Alistair said, ignoring the question. Your vector manipulation is particularly fascinating, a perfect fusion of calculated physics and natural energy. Kihara sees only the weapon potential. I see broader applications. I didn't come here for more research, Naruto said firmly. I came to ensure my safety and return to my training as agreed in the original arrangement. Bold, to make demands in my sanctuary. Alistair's tone held amusement rather than anger. But reasonable. Kihara's approach jeopardizes relations with your hidden villages, which serves no one's interest. The data swirls coalesced into what looked like new security protocols and administrative orders. Kihara Amada is removed from the exchange program, effective immediately. His security clearance is revoked, and anti-skill will stand down. Naruto felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you. Do not mistake administrative action for mercy, Alistair warned. You remain an intriguing research subject, Uzumaki Naruto. But your development will proceed under more ethical supervision. The liquid in the tank rippled slightly. A new research team will contact you tomorrow. Until then, you are free to return to your dormitory. The security alerts have been cancelled. Accelerator nodded, apparently satisfied. Come on, he told the others. We've accomplished what we came for. As they turned to leave, Alistair's voice followed them. One last thing, Uzumaki. Your weekly report to Konoha is due. I suggest you be thorough but diplomatic regarding recent events. The walk back through now quiet streets was surreal after the chaos of the past hours. Anti-skill officers who had been pursuing them hours before now nodded respectfully. Alistair's orders apparently disseminated throughout the city's hierarchy. That was the general superintendent? Naruto asked Accelerator. He seemed inhuman. Accelerator suggested. That's by design. Alistair Crowley is Academy City's greatest mystery. Some say he's not even really alive anymore, just a consciousness preserved in that tank. Why did he help us? He didn't help us, Accelerator corrected. He made a calculation. Kihara's methods risked diplomatic incidents and uncontrolled experimentation. Alistair prefers precision and predictability. Kuriko, who had been quiet since leaving the windowless building, finally spoke. I filed an official judgment report documenting Kihara's ethics violations. It won't undo what happened, but it creates a record. They reached a junction where their paths would separate. Accelerator turned to Naruto, his expression unreadable. Your vector manipulation is developing faster than mine did at your age. Be careful with it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. And if Kihara approaches you again, reflect him into next week. With that, he walked away, hands in pockets, the picture of casual indifference despite the night's events. Kuriko teleported back to Judgment Headquarters to complete her reports, leaving Naruto to make his way back to his dormitory alone. The building was quiet when he arrived, most students already asleep. His room was untouched, exactly as he'd left it that morning, a lifetime ago, it seemed. Naruto sat at his desk, staring at the communication scroll the Hokage had given him. How could he possibly explain everything that had happened? More importantly, should he? After consideration, he wrote simply, training progressing well. Had a minor disagreement with initial instructor, now assigned to new research team. Vector control improving daily. Met Academy City's 1 Esper, similar abilities, different application. Learning much about scientific approach to power development. Send update on how Misaka is adapting to Konoha. He sealed the scroll, sending the message through whatever mysterious jutsu connected it to the Hokage's office. Then he collapsed onto his bed, exhaustion finally catching up to him. Tomorrow would bring a new research team and new challenges. But for now, he'd survived his first major crisis in Academy City, and gained both allies and insights in the process. As sleep claimed him, Naruto realized something important: in both his world and this one, power attracted those who would use it for their own ends. True control wasn't just about manipulating vectors, it was about determining his own direction. Chapter 2, Acceleration. Misaka Mikoto stood on a tree branch 100 feet in the air, watching lightning dance between her fingertips. 2 weeks in this backwater ninja village and she was already going stir-crazy. You're doing it again, Niji Hyuga said from a nearby branch, his white eyes tracking her electrical discharge. Your chakra network lights up when you use your Esper ability. It's not chakra, Misaka corrected, letting the electricity dissipate. It's controlled electron manipulation through calculation. Niji's face remained impassive. I can see the energy flow. It's similar to lightning-style chakra, but more precise. Misaka sighed. These ninja kept trying to categorize her abilities in their terms. She'd given up explaining that Esper abilities came from scientifically altering personal reality, not from mystical energy networks. But she had to admit, she was curious about this chakra everyone kept talking about. Show me again, she demanded, crossing her arms. That weird spinning energy ball thing. Niji raised an eyebrow but complied. Chakra visibly gathered in his palm, swirling into a compact sphere. The Rasengan. Technically Naruto's technique, but many of us have learned variations. Misaka leaned closer, fascinated despite herself. The energy was visible, tangible in a way her electricity never was. And this works because of physical and spiritual energy combining? Precisely. Niji maintained the sphere for several seconds before letting it dissipate. Your Esper abilities seem to be pure mental energy, calculation as you call it. You're missing the physical component that gives jutsu their stability. I don't need stability, Misaka scoffed, flicking a coin into the air. A burst of electricity transformed it into a hypersonic projectile that sliced through 3 trees before embedding in a boulder. My railgun works just fine. Niji didn't look impressed. Pure power isn't everything. Versatility matters in combat. Says the guy who just pokes people with his fingers. A hint of a smile touched Niji's lips. Perhaps a demonstration would be more effective than conversation. Before Misaka could respond, he was moving, faster than she'd thought possible without technological enhancement. She fired an electrical arc, but he dodged with minimal movement, closing the distance. Misaka created an electromagnetic field, lifting herself off the branch to evade, but Niji anticipated the move. His fingertips tapped her shoulder, just the lightest touch. Pain shot through her arm as it went completely numb. What the hell? She gasped, dropping ungracefully to the forest floor. Niji landed softly beside her. Gentle fist. I disrupted your chakra network, or whatever equivalent you possess. Misaka tried to generate electricity, but her right arm remained unresponsive. That's actually impressive, she admitted reluctantly. Your abilities rely on calculation. Ours rely on energy manipulation. Niji stepped back, assuming a teaching posture. Perhaps instead of dismissing our methods, you might consider what they could add to your own techniques. For the first time since arriving in Konoha, Misaka felt genuine curiosity. These ninjas weren't just throwing energy around haphazardly, there was method and precision to their techniques that even Academy City's scientists might find fascinating. Fine. She conceded. Show me more about this chakra business. Niji nodded, looking pleased. We'll start with basic chakra sensing. If your body has adapted to this world's energy as the Hokage believes, you may be able to perceive it. As Misaka settled into a cross-legged position, she found herself wondering how Naruto was faring in Academy City. Hopefully better than her first 2 weeks in this tree-obsessed village. Meanwhile, in Academy City, Naruto slammed his palm against the training room floor. Invisible vectors rippled outward, creating a circular shockwave that sent test dummies flying in perfect concentric rings. Excellent control. Dr. Yoshikawa clapped her hands together. Your precision has improved dramatically in just 3 weeks. Naruto grinned, wiping sweat from his forehead. After the Kihara incident, his new research team was everything he could have hoped for, professional, ethical, and genuinely interested in helping him develop control rather than weaponizing his ability. The directional control feels more natural now, he explained, demonstrating by sending a small object skittering across the floor in a zigzag pattern. It's like extending my reflection field but with purpose. Dr. Yoshikawa made notes on her tablet. You're integrating the conscious calculation aspect of vector manipulation with the intuitive control of your chakra system. It's fascinating to observe. His new primary researcher, Kikyu Yoshikawa, was a former anti-skill officer with specialization in Esper ability development. Unlike Kihara, she approached research with genuine concern for her subjects' well-being. Let's try something new, she suggested, gesturing to an assistant who wheeled in a machine Naruto hadn't seen before. This generates sound waves at various frequencies. I want to test your ability to manipulate non-physical vectors. Naruto nodded, taking position in the center of the room. Ready when you are. The machine activated, emitting a tone too low for human hearing but detectable through the pressure changes in the air. Naruto concentrated, feeling for the invisible vibrations. There, like threads in the air, oscillating in predictable patterns. He reached for them with his mind, grasping the vectors of sound propagation. The tone became audible as he redirected it, focusing the sound waves toward a single point where they amplified enough for human perception. Then, with a twist of calculation, he shifted the frequency higher, changing not just the direction but the properties of the sound itself. Remarkable! Dr. Yoshikawa exclaimed, checking her instruments. You're not just redirecting the waves but modulating their characteristics. Naruto released his hold, letting the sound return to normal. It's harder than physical objects. Less substantial to grab onto. Yet you managed it intuitively. She approached, showing him the readings. This has implications for your defensive capabilities. If you can manipulate electromagnetic waves the same way. I could reflect light, heat, radio signals, Naruto realized, the possibilities expanding in his mind. Exactly. Your vector field could theoretically become selective, allowing visible light while reflecting harmful radiation, for instance. That was the difference between Yoshikawa's approach and Kihara's. Where Kihara saw weapons, she saw protections. Where he pushed for power, she emphasized control. How's the housing situation? She asked as they wrapped up training for the day. After the incident, Naruto had been moved from the research dormitory to a regular student apartment for security reasons. Still adjusting to having actual neighbors, Naruto admitted. Yesterday I accidentally reflected someone's soccer ball into the stratosphere when they kicked it too close to my balcony. Yoshikawa laughed. Social integration is part of ability management too. Speaking of which, have you considered the school board's offer? The Academy City Administration had suggested enrolling Naruto in regular classes alongside his research training, partly for diplomatic appearances, partly to help normalize his experience. Still thinking about it, Naruto said. Regular school wasn't exactly my strong suit back in Konoha. Consider it seriously. Developing your vector abilities in isolation won't help you integrate them into daily life. She gathered her research materials. Besides, you might enjoy being around people your own age who aren't studying you all the time. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. After spending his childhood isolated by fear of his uncontrolled abilities, the idea of normal social interaction was both appealing and terrifying. I'll let you know tomorrow, he promised. As he left the research facility, Naruto took a detour through the city park, enjoying the afternoon sun. Academy City was beginning to feel less alien, still strange with its robots and advanced technology, but no longer completely foreign. He found a quiet bench and pulled out the communication scroll, checking for messages from Konoha. The Hokage's updates had been brief but informative. Apparently, Misaka was adapting with characteristic determination to ninja training, which Naruto translated as complaining loudly but secretly enjoying it. The thought made him smile. He'd only met the Electromaster briefly, but her fierce intensity had left an impression. He wondered how she was handling Konoha's more laid-back attitude compared to Academy City's structured environment. His thoughts were interrupted by a prickling sensation at the edge of his awareness. Someone was watching him. Naruto didn't turn or give any indication he'd noticed. Instead, he extended his vector sensitivity outward, feeling for disruptions in the air currents around him. There, a subtle shift behind a tree 30 meters to his left. Someone using optical equipment, based on the faint electromagnetic signature he could detect. Keeping his movements casual, he stood and stretched, then began walking toward the exit. His follower moved in parallel, maintaining distance while tracking his movements. This wasn't the first time he'd sensed surveillance since the Kihara incident. Usually, it was anti-skill conducting routine monitoring of his activities, but this felt different, more furtive, less official. At a junction between paths, Naruto made a quick decision. He sharply altered course, using a burst of vector-enhanced speed to circle behind his observer. He found a young woman with a camera and tablet, so focused on where she expected him to appear that she didn't notice his approach from behind. "Looking for someone?" he asked. She startled violently, nearly dropping her equipment. You, how did you get behind me?" "Vector. Manipulation has its uses. Naruto crossed his arms. Why are you following me? The woman composed herself with surprising speed, adjusting her glasses. Therestina Kihara Lifeline, Academy City Intelligence Division, she introduced herself, flashing an ID badge. I'm conducting routine observation of exchange participants. Kihara. Naruto tensed at the name. Related to Amada Kihara? Distantly, she replied smoothly. I assure you, I don't share his research methods or ethics. Naruto wasn't convinced. Anti-skill handles exchange student monitoring. The intelligence division doesn't get involved unless there's a security concern. Therestina's friendly expression didn't waver, but something hardened in her eyes. You're well informed for someone who's only been in Academy City for a month. I make it my business to understand who's watching me and why. She slipped her camera into a bag. Smart approach. After what happened with Amada, I can't blame you for being cautious. Her tone became more serious. But my surveillance is officially sanctioned. Your ability development has significant security implications that anti-skill isn't equipped to assess. What kind of implications? Your vector manipulation originates from a completely different power system than our Esper abilities. It creates precedent and possibility that Academy City's security protocols need to account for. She handed him a business card. I'll be monitoring your progress regularly. If you have concerns, contact me directly rather than causing another incident. The veiled warning was clear. Naruto pocketed the card, maintaining eye contact. I'll keep that in mind. As Therestina walked away, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her surveillance than official security concerns. Something about her demeanor reminded him too much of Amada Kihara's calculating interest. He'd need to be more careful about where and how he practiced his abilities. Back in Konoha, Misaka stood in the center of a training circle, facing Rock Lee with a mixture of determination and frustration. For the past hour, he'd been evading her electrical attacks with ridiculous ease, moving so fast she could barely track him. Your technique is powerful but predictable, Lee explained, suddenly appearing behind her. You rely too heavily on frontal assaults. Misaka whirled, discharging electricity in an arc that Lee simply ducked under. In Academy City, speed and calculation are enough, she said, breathing hard. No one can move like you people. Lee beamed at what he took as a compliment. The power of youth and training. He settled into a fighting stance. Now, try again, but this time, anticipate where I will be, not where I am. Misaka took a deep breath, centering herself. Over the past weeks, she'd begun to recognize something the ninja called chakra sense, a faint awareness of energy flows around her. It wasn't like her electromagnetic sensing, but something more primal. She closed her eyes, focusing on that sense. Lee's presence registered as a vibrant energy signature, constantly shifting. Rather than tracking his physical movement, she tried following the energy itself. When Lee moved, she was ready. Instead of firing directly at him, she electrified the ground in a pattern that anticipated his landing spot. Lee yelped as electricity surged through his legs, temporarily disrupting his movement. Excellent, he exclaimed, even as he stumbled. You're learning to predict rather than react. Misaka grinned, the first genuine smile since arriving in Konoha. I calculated your movement pattern based on your previous 17 evasions. You favor right-side shifts with a slight delay on the landing. Such youthful analytical skill. Lee's eyes shone with excitement. Gai-sensei must see this. Please no, Misaka groaned. One enthusiastic green spandex ninja was enough. 2 was her personal definition of hell. Their training session was interrupted by the arrival of a pink-haired kunoichi Misaka recognized as the Hokage's apprentice. Sakura, Lee greeted cheerfully. Have you come to witness Misaka-san's progress? Actually, the Hokage needs to see her. Sakura's expression was serious. Immediately. Misaka frowned. Did something happen? Just come, Sakura said, already turning to leave. It's about Naruto. Those 3 words sent an unexpected spike of concern through Misaka. While she barely knew the spiky-haired Vector Kid, she felt oddly responsible for his well-being in Academy City. After all, they were counterparts in this exchange program. She followed Sakura to the Hokage Tower, where the 3rd Hokage sat behind his desk reviewing a scroll. His expression was grave. "Misaka-san, thank you for coming promptly." He gestured for her to sit. "We've received concerning intelligence regarding Academy City's research into Naruto's abilities." "What kind of intelligence?" Misaka asked, immediately alert. "Our sources indicate a group called Study has taken interest in his vector manipulation. They've been conducting unauthorized observation and may be planning to abduct him for experimentation." Misaka's blood ran cold. "Study? Are you sure?" The Hokage raised an eyebrow. "You're familiar with this organization?" "They're a radical research collective obsessed with artificial esper development," Misaka explained. "They were behind several incidents in Academy City involving illegal experimentation on students. She'd had personal experience with Study during their attempt to create artificial level 5s using technology that drained other espers' abilities. The organization had supposedly been dismantled after their leader's arrest, but clearly some elements remained active. Our intelligence is fragmented," the Hokage continued, "but suggests they're particularly interested in how Naruto's chakra system interacts with his vector calculation abilities." "That makes sense," Misaka said grimly. Study's whole focus is finding shortcuts to esper development. A naturally occurring power system that enhances calculation ability would be their holy grail. The Hokage studied her for a moment. "How would you assess the threat level?" "Extreme," Misaka replied without hesitation. "Study doesn't care about collateral damage or subject survival. They view espers as research materials, not people." She leaned forward, hands gripping the chair arms. "I need to go back. Naruto doesn't know enough about Academy City's underground research groups to recognize the danger signs. The exchange program is scheduled for 6 months, the Hokage reminded her. You've barely completed the first phase of your training here. With all due respect, that doesn't matter now." Misaka stood. "This isn't just about Naruto. If Study gets their hands on functioning chakra esper hybrid technology, they could create weapons that would threaten both our worlds." The Hokage's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing her sincerity. After a moment, he nodded. "Very well. We'll arrange emergency transport back to Academy City. But this isn't an extraction mission, we can't risk diplomatic incidents by removing Naruto without proper channels." "I understand," Misaka said. "I'll warn him and help coordinate with Academy City security forces. Anti-skill and judgment should take Study seriously if a level 5 reports the threat." "You leave tomorrow morning," the Hokage decided. "Sakura will help you prepare." As they left the office, Sakura gave Misaka a curious look. "You seem pretty concerned about someone you barely know." Misaka felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It's not about Naruto specifically. It's about preventing Study from creating more weapons. I've seen what they're capable of." "Aha," Sakura replied, clearly unconvinced. "Just like I'm totally not concerned about Sasuke specifically when he's in danger. It's all about the village security." "It's nothing like that." Misaka protested, electricity accidentally crackling in her hair. Sakura just laughed. "Whatever you say, railgun. Let's get you packed." The next morning found Naruto sitting in a classroom at Tokuwadai Middle School, feeling decidedly out of place among the uniformed students. He'd finally accepted the school board's recommendation to attend regular classes, but hadn't anticipated being placed in one of Academy City's most prestigious schools. As you can see from the equation, calculating the vector sum requires careful attention to both magnitude and direction, the physics teacher explained, writing complex formulas across the board. Naruto stifled a yawn. After weeks of hands-on vector manipulation, theoretical physics seemed painfully abstract. Besides, his practical understanding of vectors now surpassed most textbooks. A girl beside him nudged his arm, sliding a note across the desk. "You're the exchange student, right? The one who can reflect anything," she whispered. Naruto nodded, surprised by the friendly approach. Most students gave him a wide berth, either intimidated by rumors of his ability or unsure how to interact with the research subject suddenly dropped into their class. "I'm Satan Ruko," she introduced herself quietly. "Level 0, but friend to several level 5s, so don't feel too special." Her grin took any sting from the words. "Naruto Uzumaki," he whispered back. "And I don't feel special, just confused. Why am I in an advanced physics class when I can barely understand basic math?" Satan giggled. "Because your practical application is off the charts. They figure you'll absorb the theory through osmosis or something." Their conversation was interrupted by the teacher clearing her throat pointedly. "Since our new student and Ms. Satan are so engaged in discussion, perhaps they'd like to demonstrate vector summation for the class." Naruto froze, but Satan stood confidently. "Actually, sensei, I was just telling Uzumaki-san that his practical demonstration would be more educational than theoretical examples." The teacher raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Before Naruto could protest, he found himself at the front of the class with several balls of different weights placed on a table. He began awkwardly. "Vector manipulation is about controlling direction and magnitude of force." He picked up a tennis ball, tossing it lightly. "When I use my ability." He concentrated, catching the ball in his vector field and causing it to hover. Then, with careful calculation, he sent it flying in a perfect figure-8 pattern around the classroom before returning it gently to his hand. The students watched in fascinated silence. "The trick isn't just changing direction," Naruto continued, finding his confidence. "It's adjusting force simultaneously." He set 3 balls of different weights rolling across the table at the same speed, then altered their vectors so they moved in perfect synchronization despite their mass differences. "Vector calculation happens automatically in my field," he explained, "but conscious manipulation requires understanding how forces interact." By the time he finished his impromptu demonstration, even the teacher looked impressed. "An excellent practical illustration of vector physics," she acknowledged. "Though I still expect you to complete the theoretical homework, Uzumaki-san." As Naruto returned to his seat, he noticed several students looking at him with newfound interest rather than apprehension. For the first time since arriving in Academy City, he felt like a student rather than a research subject. When class ended, Satan immediately pulled him into the hallway. "That was amazing. You have to meet my friends, they're gonna flip when they see what you can do." "Shouldn't I go to my next class?" Naruto asked, consulting his schedule. "It's lunch period," Satan declared, dragging him toward the cafeteria. "Social integration is part of the educational experience, right?" Naruto couldn't argue with that logic. He followed her through the crowded cafeteria to a table where a group of girls was already seated. "Everyone," Satan announced dramatically, "meet Naruto, the vector ninja who can actually give Accelerator a run for his money." "We've met," Ueharu said with a smile. "During the Kihara incident." "You're in regular classes now?" Kuriko asked, looking surprised. "I thought you were exclusively with the research division." "Dr. Yoshikawa suggested I needed normalized social interaction," Naruto explained, setting down his tray. "Something about developing in isolation being unhealthy." "Smart doctor," Satan approved, stealing a French fry from Ueharu's plate. "So, what's the ninja world like? Do you all run around in black pajamas throwing stars at each other?" "Satan-san." Ueharu scolded. "That's culturally insensitive." Naruto laughed. "Actually, we do use shuriken, but the black outfits are mostly for special operations. Regular ninjas dress practically for their mission parameters." "See? Totally ninja-like," Satan said triumphantly. Their lunch conversation flowed surprisingly easily, with the girls asking about Konoha and Naruto sharing stories that didn't involve classified information. It felt good to talk about home, the Ichiraka ramen shop, the Hokage monument, training grounds where young ninjas practiced their techniques. It sounds more community-oriented than Academy City, Ueharu observed. Here, ability development is very individualized. That's the biggest difference I've noticed, Naruto agreed. In Konoha, abilities serve the village. Here, they seem to exist for their own development. Kuriko nodded thoughtfully. That creates different incentives. Our system rewards maximum individual potential. Yours rewards maximum community contribution. Neither is perfect, Naruto said, thinking of both Konoha's tendency to weaponize bloodline abilities and Academy City's sometimes ruthless research methods. But both have things to teach each other. Speaking of teaching, Satan interjected, are you coming to the demonstration festival next week? All the schools showcase their best ability users. Naruto hesitated. I'm not actually enrolled as a regular student. I'm still technically a research subject. But you're attending classes, Ueharu pointed out. That makes you eligible to represent Tokuwadai if you want to. The idea of participating in a normal student activity was appealing. I'll think about it. As lunch ended and the group dispersed to afternoon classes, Naruto felt a lightness he hadn't experienced since arriving in Academy City. For once, he'd had a conversation where no one measured his reflection field or calculated his vector equations. He'd just been a student among students. Maybe this school integration wasn't such a bad idea after all. The feeling of normalcy lasted exactly 3 hours and 27 minutes. Naruto was walking back to his apartment after school when his reflection field activated automatically, stopping a tranquilizer dart inches from his neck. The projectile hung suspended for a moment before dropping harmlessly to the ground. Instantly alert, Naruto expanded his field, searching for the shooter. His vector sense detected movement on a rooftop across the street, someone rapidly retreating. Without thinking, he manipulated the vectors beneath his feet, launching himself upward in a controlled arc that deposited him on the rooftop. A figure in dark clothing was already sprinting toward the next building. Stop! Naruto shouted, sending a vector pulse that disturbed the air in front of the fleeing attacker, creating temporary resistance. The figure stumbled, regained balance, then turned, revealing a woman in a tactical outfit with advanced-looking equipment. She raised what looked like a specialized rifle and fired. This time, it wasn't a dart but some kind of energy pulse. Naruto's reflection field caught it, but he felt pressure as the unusual energy interacted with his calculations. Interesting, the woman said, her voice electronically distorted. The field adapts to energy-based attacks, just like the reports indicated. Naruto stepped forward, keeping his vector field at maximum alertness. Who are you? Why are you attacking me? Not attacking. Testing. She adjusted something on her weapon. Study sends its regards. Before Naruto could respond, she fired again, this time a rapid sequence of energy pulses at different frequencies. His reflection field handled them, but he felt the calculation strain as they adapted to each new pattern. Stop this! Naruto shouted, sending a concussive vector wave toward her. The woman dodged with unexpected agility, firing a grappling line to a nearby building and swinging away. Naruto prepared to pursue, then noticed something attached to the rooftop where she'd been standing. A small device with a flashing red light. Bomb, his instincts screamed. He threw a vector shield around it just as the device detonated, not with an explosion, but with a massive electromagnetic pulse that would have fried any electronics within 50 meters if not contained by his field. The effort of containing the pulse while maintaining his personal reflection field left Naruto momentarily drained. By the time he recovered enough to look for his attacker, she had vanished. Naruto pulled out his phone, thankfully shielded from the EMP by his field, and called Dr. Yoshikawa. Someone just attacked me, he reported when she answered. Used tranquilizers, energy weapons, and an EMP device. called herself part of study. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Where are you? Are you injured? I'm fine. My reflection handled everything. I'm on a rooftop near Tokuwadai Middle School. Stay there, Yoshikawa ordered. I'm sending anti-skill. Don't approach anyone until they arrive. While waiting, Naruto examined the remains of the EMP device, careful not to touch anything that might have forensic value. The technology was sophisticated, more advanced than standard Academy City equipment, based on what he'd seen so far. Anti-skill arrived within minutes, securing the area and collecting evidence. Yoshikawa herself appeared shortly after, face tight with concern. Study, she muttered, examining the device fragments. I thought they were dismantled after the level upper incident. Apparently not, Naruto said. She seemed specifically interested in my reflection field's response to energy attacks. Yoshikawa's expression darkened. This is concerning. Study specializes in artificial ability development through technological means. If they're targeting you, they want to understand how my chakra-based vector manipulation works, Naruto finished. To replicate it somehow. Exactly. Yoshikawa turned to the anti-skill commander. I want 24-hour security assigned to Uzumaki-san. This isn't a random attack, it's targeted ability theft. Research. The commander nodded. We'll coordinate with Judgment for school hours coverage and implement a safe house protocol for his residents. Is that really necessary? Naruto asked, uncomfortable with the idea of constant surveillance. Study doesn't give up easily, Yoshikawa said grimly. And they've proven willing to go to extreme lengths for research data. Until we understand exactly what they're after, we need to assume the threat is serious. As security measures were arranged around him, Naruto couldn't help feeling that his brief taste of normal student life had just evaporated. Once again, his abilities made him a target rather than just a person. The next morning brought another surprise, this one considerably more welcome. Naruto was eating breakfast in his apartment, now located in a secure building with anti-skill patrols, when someone pounded on his door with enough force to rattle the hinges. Open up, Vector Boy. I know you're in there. He recognized that voice immediately. Pulling open the door revealed Misaka Mikoto, looking travel-worn but determined, electricity occasionally sparking in her hair. Misaka? Naruto blinked in confusion. What are you doing back in Academy City? The exchange program still has 5 months, there's no time for that, she interrupted, pushing past him into the apartment. Study is after you, and they're not playing around. Yeah, I found that out yesterday when one of them tried to tranquilize me, Naruto replied, closing the door. How did you know about that? Konoha intelligence picked up chatter. Misaka dropped her bag and began pacing. Study's been monitoring you since you arrived, looking for ways to replicate your chakra vector hybrid ability. And you came back just to warn me about this? Misaka stopped pacing, looking almost embarrassed. Well, yeah. The Hokage was concerned about potential threats to both our worlds if Study successfully weaponizes chakra-based abilities. That's actually really cool of you, Naruto said, genuinely touched by her return. But anti-skill already has security measures in place. There was an attempt yesterday, an attempt means they're accelerating their timeline, Misaka cut in. Study doesn't send field operatives unless they're ready to move to capture phase. She pulled out a tablet, bringing up research notes and surveillance photos. Look, they've been tracking your development for weeks. These notes detail your training sessions, ability parameters, even your daily routine. Naruto examined the documents, feeling increasingly uneasy. How did you get these? Ueharu, Misaka explained. I contacted her as soon as I arrived this morning. She hacked Study's known server locations and found these. The level of detail in the surveillance was disturbing. Times, locations, specific vector calculations he'd performed, power output measurements, all meticulously documented. They even have notes on your chakra fluctuations during different emotional states, Misaka pointed out. They're building a comprehensive profile for replication research. Naruto sat heavily on the couch. So what do we do? I can't just hide in a secure facility for the rest of the exchange program. We take the fight to them, Misaka said, determination flashing in her eyes. Haru tracked the server location to a research facility in District 10. If we can access their main database, we can identify the leadership and shut down their operation. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I thought you were just here to warn me. Misaka crossed her arms. You really think I'd miss a chance to take down study again? Besides, our abilities might have interesting complementary applications. What do you mean? Your vector control, my electricity manipulation. A gleam entered her eyes. I've been thinking about it since I first saw your reflection field. Theoretically, you could direct and amplify my electrical attacks with unprecedented precision. The idea was intriguing. Naruto had never considered using his vector manipulation to enhance someone else's ability. It would take practice, he noted. I've never tried manipulating vectors I don't generate myself. So we practice, Misaka said simply. I didn't spend 3 weeks learning chakra theory just to deliver a warning and leave. You learned chakra theory? Naruto couldn't hide his surprise. A faint blush colored Misaka's cheeks. Don't make a big deal about it. Your ninja friends insisted I needed to understand energy basics before they teach me anything useful. And? What did you think? It's interesting, she admitted reluctantly. Less precise than Esper calculations, but more versatile. I can see applications that Academy City's approach misses entirely. Naruto grinned. So the great railgun found something to respect in backward ninja techniques? Shut up, she muttered, but without heat. Are we going to plan a counter-operation or not? Before Naruto could answer, his phone rang, Dr. Yoshikawa calling with update on the study investigation. Anti-Skill has identified 3 potential facilities associated with yesterday's attacker, she reported. They're preparing search warrants now. Actually, Naruto replied, we may have more specific intelligence. He explained Misaka's return and the information Haru had uncovered. Misaka-san is back in Academy City? Yoshikawa sounded surprised. The exchange program wasn't designed for concurrent participation. Extenuating circumstances, Misaka called from across the room, loud enough to be heard over the phone. Yoshikawa sighed. I'll update Anti-Skill with the server location information. In the meantime, both of you stay in the secure apartment. The last thing we need is 2 high-profile ability users wandering around as targets. After hanging up, Naruto turned to find Misaka examining his practice equipment with critical interest. So this is how they've been training your vector control. She picked up a specially designed ball that recorded force and direction data. Pretty basic compared to what we could do with direct ability interaction. Meaning this. She generated a small electrical sphere in her palm. Try redirecting this without disrupting its cohesion. Naruto focused on the crackling energy ball, extending his vector sense toward it. Unlike physical objects, electricity moved according to complex, chaotic patterns. Grasping those patterns without dispersing the energy required incredibly fine calculation. His first attempt sent sparks flying around the room. His second managed to move the sphere slightly before it destabilized. It's not like solid matter, he said, frustrated. The vectors shift constantly. That's the challenge, Misaka replied. Electricity follows path of least resistance, creating dynamic vector flows. If you can learn to manipulate those, I could redirect any energy form, Naruto realized. Not just reflect it. They spent the next hours experimenting with increasingly complex energy manipulations. Misaka created various electrical formations, and Naruto attempted to redirect them without disruption. By mid-afternoon, he could move a sustained electrical current along predetermined paths, essentially creating circuits in midair. "This is actually working," Misaka said, sounding impressed despite herself. "Try amplifying now. Use your vectors to accelerate the electrons without changing the path." Naruto concentrated, visualizing the microscopic particles and their movement vectors. Instead of redirecting, he pushed, adding momentum while maintaining the established flow pattern. The result was spectacular. Misaka's modest electrical current suddenly flared into a brilliant, focused beam that scorched the reinforced practice wall. Whoa! Naruto released his control, startled by the intensity. Misaka was staring at the damaged wall with wide eyes. That was at least 10 times amplification. My calculations wouldn't allow that kind of efficiency without specialized equipment. It felt like harmonizing, Naruto tried to explain. Like finding the natural flow and enhancing it rather than forcing a new pattern. That's the chakra component, Misaka theorized. You're not just calculating vectors, you're aligning with the energy's intrinsic nature. She looked thoughtful. No wonder study wants this capability. It completely transcends normal Esper limitations. Their practice session was interrupted by Naruto's phone ringing again. This time it was Ueharu from Judgment. "Anti-skill raided the District 10 facility," she reported. "They found the servers, but the research team had already evacuated. They left something behind, though, a message specifically for you, Naruto-san." "What kind of message?" Naruto asked, putting the call on speaker so Misaka could hear. "A video file," Ueharu said. "I'm sending it now. Be careful, it might be some kind of psychological manipulation." Moments later, Naruto's tablet chimed with the incoming file. He and Misaka watched as the screen filled with the image of a woman in a lab coat, the same one who had attacked him the previous day, now without her tactical gear or voice distortion. "Greetings, Uzumaki Naruto," she began, her tone clinically professional. "By now, you've discovered our interest in your unique abilities. My name is Dr. Theristina Kihara Lifeline, lead researcher for Studies Hybrid Capability Division." "Kihara?" Naruto and Misaka exclaimed simultaneously. "Yes, the family connection you're now recognizing is relevant," the woman continued, as if anticipating their reaction. "My cousin Amada's research provided the foundation for our current understanding of your vector chakra system. His failure to secure you as a research subject necessitated our more direct approach." Theristina smiled thinly. "We've collected sufficient preliminary data on your reflection capabilities. However, for complete analysis, we require direct examination of your chakra network during active calculation states. You have two options: voluntary participation with full research privileges, or involuntary acquisition with significantly less pleasant methodologies." Misaka scoffed. "Standard study recruitment pitch. They always act like they're offering a legitimate choice." To demonstrate our seriousness, Theristina continued, "We've prepared a small demonstration. At precisely 1800 hours today, a series of energy disruption devices will activate throughout Academy City, targeting the power grid control centers. Unless you present yourself at the coordinates attached to this message, massive power failures will affect critical infrastructure, including hospital life support systems and security containment for dangerous research materials." The video ended with Theristina's cold smile. "The choice is yours. Come alone, or responsibility for the consequences falls on you." Naruto checked the time. They had less than 2 hours before study's deadline. "It's a trap," Misaka stated flatly. "They're not even being subtle about it." "Obviously," Naruto agreed. "But we can't ignore the threat to the power grid. Even if anti-skill evacuates hospitals, the chaos from a citywide outage would put thousands at risk." Ueharu, still on the phone, spoke up. "I'm notifying anti-skill about the threat now. They'll need to locate and neutralize these disruption devices immediately." "There won't be time," Misaka said, already gathering her equipment. Study doesn't bluff about technological threats. If they say they've planted devices, they have. So what's the plan? Naruto asked. I'm not actually going to turn myself over to them. Of course not. Misaka's eyes gleamed with determination. We're going to play along just enough to locate their actual operation center. While anti-skill handles the power grid threat, we track Study to their source. That's incredibly dangerous, Ueharu protested. Study will be expecting some kind of countermove. Which is why they won't expect both of us, Misaka replied. The message specifically told Naruto to come alone. They're not factoring me into their calculations. She turned to Naruto. How's your acting? Terrible, he admitted. Why? Because you're about to convincingly walk into a trap while I shadow you from a distance. If we coordinate our abilities correctly, we can turn their ambush into our advantage. As they quickly formulated a plan, Naruto found himself impressed by Misaka's tactical thinking. Beneath her prickly exterior was a strategist who had clearly faced similar threats before. One question, he said as they prepared to leave. Why are you doing this? You could have just warned Academy City officials and let them handle it. Misaka paused, electricity dancing between her fingers as she calibrated her equipment. Because Study doesn't just threaten you or Academy City. If they successfully replicate chakra-enhanced abilities, they'll eventually target Konoha too. She met his eyes directly. Besides, I've spent 3 weeks learning about your world. I've got a vested interest in making sure it doesn't get destabilized by power-hungry researchers. It wasn't the whole truth, Naruto could tell from the slight flush on her cheeks, but it was enough for now. All right then, Railgun, he said, extending his hand. Let's show Study what happens when they mess with both our worlds. The coordinates led to an abandoned research facility in District 21, Academy City's mountainous region where many of the more hazardous experiments were conducted. Anti-Skill had established a perimeter 2 kilometers out, monitoring but not approaching as per the plan. Remember, Misaka said over the secure communicator in Naruto's ear, I'll be tracking you electromagnetically the entire time. Keep your vector field minimal to avoid detection of the communication signal. Got it, Naruto replied quietly. You sure they can't detect you? I've been masking my electromagnetic signature since we entered the district, she assured him. As far as their sensors are concerned, I'm just background static. Naruto approached the facility's main entrance, keeping his movements natural despite the tension coiling in his stomach. The massive steel doors opened automatically as he approached, never a good sign. Welcome, Uzumaki-san, Baristina's voice echoed over speakers. Please proceed to the central laboratory. Any deviation from the marked path will be considered a violation of our agreement. Lights illuminated along the floor, creating a path deeper into the facility. Naruto followed, maintaining awareness of his surroundings while keeping his vector field precisely calibrated, enough to protect against sudden attacks but not so strong it would interfere with Misaka's tracking. I'm picking up significant power signatures ahead, Misaka reported in his ear. Whatever they've got in the central lab is drawing massive current. The path led to a circular chamber filled with advanced equipment. In the center stood a chair that resembled the one Kihara had attempted to use for his brain calibration procedure, but far more elaborate. Surrounding it were energy collection arrays and monitoring stations. Baristina waited beside the chair, flanked by researchers in study uniforms. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality in research subjects. The power grid devices, Naruto said immediately. Deactivate them first. Of course. Baristina made a show of entering commands on a tablet. Screens around the room displayed power grid stabilization metrics. Crisis averted. Now, shall we proceed with your examination? What exactly are you planning to do? Baristina gestured to the chair. A comprehensive scan of your chakra network during active vector calculation. Non-invasive, I assure you. And after that? Further research, naturally. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Your ability represents a paradigm shift in Esper development theory. The integration of natural energy systems with calculated reality manipulation could revolutionize Academy City's power curriculum. You mean it could give you weapons no one else has, Naruto translated. Theristina shrugged. Applications vary based on research outcomes. Military potential is merely one avenue of exploration. Just like your non-invasive scan is just one step before you start cutting me open to see how I work, Naruto said flatly. Her expression hardened. Your cooperation would make things simpler, but it isn't strictly necessary. She nodded to her assistants, who activated equipment around the room. We've developed countermeasures for your vector reflection based on yesterday's field test data. Energy fields hummed to life, creating a containment grid that Naruto could feel pressing against his vector calculations, introducing errors and instabilities. Frequency disruption, Theristina explained. Interferes with the mathematical component of your vector field while allowing the chakra component to function, keeping you conscious but defenseless. Naruto felt his reflection field fluctuating, struggling to maintain coherence against the targeted interference. It wasn't failing completely, but its reliability was compromised. Naruto, they're using some kind of targeted field disruption, Misaka's voice came through the communicator, now with static interference. I'm repositioning to take out their power source. Interesting, Theristina noted, watching measurement displays. Your field is more resilient than our models predicted. The chakra component appears to be compensating for calculation disruption. She adjusted controls, intensifying the interference. Let's see how it handles increased pressure. Naruto winced as his vector field destabilized further. He needed to buy time for Misaka to locate the facility's power core. Why study, he asked, forcing himself to sound conversational despite the growing discomfort. You're a Kihara. Your family has legitimate research access throughout Academy City. The Kihara methodology is constrained by bureaucracy and ethics committees, Theristina replied, continuing to monitor his field's degradation. Study offers freedom to pursue research to its logical conclusion without arbitrary restrictions. You mean without having to worry about whether your subjects survive? Precisely. She didn't even attempt to deny it. Scientific progress requires sacrifice. The integration of chakra-based energy systems with Esper abilities could create power beyond anything Academy City has achieved in decades. A warning alarm suddenly blared from a monitoring station. One of the researchers rushed to check it. Energy surge in the lower levels, he reported. Something's interfering with the power distribution system. Theristina's eyes narrowed. You didn't come alone. You really think I'd walk into an obvious trap without backup? Naruto taunted, feeling his vector field beginning to stabilize as the disruption weakened. Academy City's 3 says hello. The facility lights flickered as Misaka's electromagnetic manipulation hit the power systems. The disruption field wavered, giving Naruto the opening he needed. With a surge of concentration, he expanded his vector field explosively, shattering the weakened containment grid and sending equipment flying. Researchers scattered as monitors exploded and the central platform destabilized. Activate secondary containment. Theristina shouted, drawing a specialized weapon. Initiate Protocol Sigma. She fired at Naruto, not a conventional projectile but a compressed burst of the same disruption energy that had been affecting his vector field. This time, however, he was ready for it. Instead of trying to reflect the energy directly, he calculated its complex frequency pattern and created a countering vector field that neutralized it through destructive interference. That's new, Theristina observed, genuine scientific interest briefly overriding her anger at the escape attempt. Adaptive countermeasure generation. I've learned a few things since coming to Academy City, Naruto replied, advancing toward her. Including how to deal with frequency-based attacks. The floor beneath them suddenly heaved as a massive electrical surge tore through the facility's infrastructure. Misaka burst through a side entrance, electricity arcing around her body as she systematically destroyed research equipment. The power grid devices were decoys, she announced, blasting a path toward Naruto. Their real goal was getting vector field data under stress conditions. And we've gotten everything we need, Theristina said calmly, pressing a button on her wrist device. Initiating facility purge. New alarms blared as containment doors began sealing throughout the complex. Self-destruct sequence, Misaka translated, grabbing Naruto's arm. We need to move, now. They ran for the exit as researchers evacuated through separate routes. Theristina had already disappeared, likely through a secured escape path. They're destroying the evidence, Naruto realized as they sprinted down a corridor. All their research data will be backed up at another facility, Misaka cut him off. Study never keeps their primary research in field locations. A massive security door began descending ahead of them, threatening to cut off their escape route. Naruto reached out with his vector control, finding the hydraulic mechanisms and reversing their force vectors, causing the door to retract instead of close. Nice trick, Misaka commented as they slipped through. Thanks. Can you sense the shortest path out? This place is a maze. Misaka concentrated, extending her electromagnetic sensitivity. 3 levels up, northwest corner. There's an emergency exit with its own power supply. They navigated through the destabilizing facility, combining their abilities to overcome obstacles, Misaka short-circuiting electronic locks, Naruto manipulating physical barriers with vector control. The countdown continued, marking their remaining escape time and progressively more urgent announcements. As they reached the upper level, a final security measure activated, combat robots designed specifically for ability user containment. 6 machines converged on their position, armed with what looked like specialized anti-esper weapons. I'll short them out, Misaka said, generating a powerful electromagnetic pulse. Wait, Naruto grabbed her wrist. Remember our practice session? Let's try something. Understanding dawned in her eyes. She nodded, generating a concentrated electrical sphere between her hands. Ready when you are. Naruto focused on the crackling energy, extending his vector control to shape and direct it without disrupting its cohesion. As the robots advanced, he calculated the optimal attack pattern, not a single blast, but a controlled, branching discharge that would target each robot's vulnerable systems simultaneously. Now, he called. Misaka released her electrical attack. Naruto's vectors caught it, amplifying and directing the energy into 6 precisely calibrated streams that sliced through the robots with surgical accuracy. The machines collapsed, their systems fried by the perfectly targeted discharge. That was. Misaka stared at the disabled robots, then at her hands, incredible. The precision was beyond anything I can do alone. Vector-guided electricity, Naruto grinned despite the danger. Told you our abilities would work well together. The facility's countdown reached critical levels, interrupting their moment of triumph. They sprinted for the exit, bursting through emergency doors just as the first controlled detonations began collapsing the complex behind them. Anti-skill personnel rushed forward as they cleared the danger zone, medical teams standing ready. The facility imploded with a series of calculated explosions, leaving nothing but a smoking crater in the mountainside. Theristina? Naruto asked as they were escorted to a secure vehicle. Escaped, Misaka confirmed grimly. Study leaders always have contingency plans. Dr. Yoshikawa met them at the Anti-Skill Command Center, her relief visible. That was incredibly reckless, she scolded, though without real anger. But effective. Anti-skill neutralized all the power grid devices while you were keeping study occupied. Did they get what they wanted? Naruto asked. Data on my vector field under stress? Partially, Yoshikawa admitted. But not the full chakra network analysis they were after. Without that, they can't replicate the natural energy component that makes your ability unique. They'll try again, Misaka stated with certainty. Study doesn't abandon research targets, especially ones with military potential. Which is why security protocols are being completely overhauled, Yoshikawa assured them. The board of directors has classified chakra vector integration as a Priority 1 protected research domain. Any unauthorized experimentation will trigger immediate response. She looked between them with professional interest. I'm more intrigued by what you two discovered about ability integration. The reports from anti-skill observers suggest you achieved vector-guided electrical discharge with unprecedented accuracy. Naruto and Misaka exchanged glances. It was just improvisation, Misaka said dismissively, though Naruto noticed a hint of pride in her voice. Very effective improvisation, Yoshikawa noted. If you're both willing, I'd like to conduct some controlled experiments on this integration phenomenon. Purely for defensive applications, she added quickly. I thought the exchange program didn't allow for concurrent participation, Naruto pointed out. Exceptions can be made for unique research opportunities, Yoshikawa replied. Besides, after today's events, having Academy City's third-rank level 5 assist with your training seems prudent from a security perspective. Misaka crossed her arms. I came back to handle the study threat, not to become a research subject myself. Consider it cultural exchange, Yoshikawa suggested smoothly. You learn about Naruto's chakra-based abilities, he learns about your Esper techniques, and I document the scientific implications. Everyone benefits. After further discussion and assurances about research protocols, they tentatively agreed to Yoshikawa's proposal. As they left the command center, Misaka fell into step beside Naruto. So, she began awkwardly, that vector guidance thing we did was pretty amazing, Naruto finished. I've never been able to direct energy with that kind of precision before. And I've never had that level of control over my electricity once it leaves my body. Misaka hesitated, then added, if we're going to be working together for a while, we should probably practice that more. Definitely, Naruto agreed. Though maybe somewhere less explode why next time. A hint of a smile touched Misaka's lips. Academy City does have some non-exploding facilities. Occasionally. As they walked through the evening streets, the city's lights creating a technological landscape so different from Konoha's natural beauty, Naruto felt a strange sense of optimism despite the day's dangers. For the first time since arriving in Academy City, his abilities had connected him to someone rather than isolating him. If study wanted his power, they'd have to deal with not one unique ability, but two working in perfect synchronization. That thought was more comforting than any security protocol Academy City could implement. The following weeks established a new routine. Mornings were spent with Dr. Yoshikawa, documenting and developing their ability integration techniques. Afternoons, Naruto continued attending Tokuwadai classes, now with Misaka occasionally joining to observe and assist with practical demonstrations. Evenings were dedicated to specialized training, pushing the boundaries of what their combined abilities could accomplish. Their progress was remarkable. Naruto's vector control gained precision and versatility as he learned to manipulate increasingly complex energy patterns. Misaka discovered her electricity could maintain coherence over unprecedented distances when guided by properly calculated vectors. Together, they developed techniques that neither could achieve alone. The theoretical implications are fascinating, Yoshikawa commented during one session, reviewing data from their latest experiment, a vector-guided electrical strike that could turn corners and navigate obstacles with perfect precision. Your abilities aren't just complementary, they're synergistic. The whole exceeds the sum of parts. It's like chakra nature transformation, Naruto explained, attempting to relate the phenomenon to his world's understanding. In Konoha, ninjas with complementary chakra natures can combine techniques to create effects neither could produce individually. Except we're not using chakra, Misaka pointed out. I'm still operating on pure calculation. Not entirely, Yoshikawa interjected, displaying brain scan comparisons. Your extended exposure to Konoha's environment appears to have sensitized your neural pathways to natural energy patterns. You're not generating chakra, but you're responding to its influence in Naruto's calculations. This revelation fascinated both of them. The boundaries between their power systems weren't as absolute as initially believed, each could influence and adapt to the other under the right conditions. Outside the research facility, their relationship evolved from wary cooperation to genuine friendship. Misaka introduced Naruto to Academy City's better aspects, the underground malls, student cafes, and technological wonders that made the city unique. In return, Naruto shared stories of Konoha, teaching her ninja hand signs and chakra meditation techniques that enhanced her electromagnetic sensing. They were practicing in a specialized training field when Kuriko teleported in with urgent news. Studies on the move again, she reported, handing Misaka a data tablet. Judgment's been tracking unusual equipment purchases and personnel movements. They're establishing a new research base in District 23. The airport district. Misaka frowned, scanning the data. That's an odd choice for clandestine research. Unless they're planning something involving air transport, Naruto suggested, looking over her shoulder at the reports. Or space-based technology. Kuriko nodded grimly. That's Ueharu's theory as well. District 23 houses Academy City's Aerospace Research Division. If study is interfacing with those systems, they could be developing delivery systems for whatever weapons they're creating, Misaka finished. We need to investigate, but quietly. If we trigger another self-destruct, we'll lose the evidence again. Anti-Skill is monitoring the situation, Kuriko assured them. But their jurisdiction in District 23 is limited due to aerospace security protocols. Judgment can provide intelligence, but direct intervention would require board approval. Which would take too long an alert study, Naruto concluded. So we're on our own. Not entirely, Kuriko corrected. Accelerator expressed interest in the situation when I briefed him. Apparently, he has personal history with Aristina Kihara. Accelerator volunteered to help. Misaka looked skeptical. That doesn't sound like him. His exact words were, "The Kiharas need a reminder about playing with powers they don't understand," Kuriko quoted. I believe he feels some responsibility given his own history with their research methods. The involvement of Academy City's strongest esper changed the equation significantly. With 3 level 5 abilities coordinating, counting Naruto's vector manipulation at equivalent power, they had a genuine chance of shutting down Study's operation before it advanced further. When does Accelerator want to move? Naruto asked. Tonight, Kuriko replied. Minimal personnel, maximum deniability. The board won't authorize official action without concrete evidence, but they'll overlook a training incident that happens to disrupt unauthorized research. The plan came together quickly. Using Judgment's intelligence and Accelerator's knowledge of Kihara research protocols, they identified the most likely location for Study's new facility, a supposedly decommissioned aerospace testing bunker in District 23's restricted zone. That evening, they gathered on a rooftop overlooking the aerospace complex. Accelerator arrived last, looking bored as usual despite the high-stakes operation. The security systems are standard Academy City protocols with custom modifications, he explained, reviewing the facility schematics. I can handle the outer perimeter. Railgun takes the communications array to prevent emergency calls. Vector Kid disables the internal security once we're inside. Vector Kid? Naruto repeated, raising an eyebrow. Accelerator shrugged. You got a better name for what you do. We're not here to workshop superhero identities, Misaka cut in. What about Aristina? She'll have countermeasures specific to each of our abilities. Which is why we don't use our abilities predictably, Accelerator replied. I'll use telekinesis instead of reflection where possible. You use magnetism rather than direct electrical attacks. He uses chakra techniques instead of vector manipulation when appropriate. Naruto was impressed by the tactical thinking. Fighting outside our normal patterns to confuse their countermeasures. Smart. It's what I'd do if I were designing defenses against known abilities, Accelerator said. Kiharas think similarly. They prepare for what they've documented, not what they haven't seen. With roles assigned and contingencies in place, they moved into position. The operation began smoothly. Accelerator disabled the perimeter sensors using subtle vector shifts that appeared as system glitches rather than attacks. Misaka neutralized the communications array with a precisely targeted electromagnetic pulse that seemed like routine interference in the aerospace testing zone. Naruto, applying both his ninja training and vector abilities, bypassed the internal security systems by creating localized distortions in the sensor fields, not enough to trigger alarms, but sufficient to create blind spots they could navigate through. They reached the central research area without detection, finding a laboratory humming with activity despite the late hour. Scientists worked at various stations, focused on what appeared to be integration testing between biological samples and technological components. From their observation point in an elevated maintenance corridor, they could see display screens showing familiar data, Naruto's vector field calculations alongside what appeared to be synthetic chakra network models. "They're trying to create artificial chakra pathways," Naruto whispered, recognizing the patterns from medical texts he'd studied in Konoha. "Using my data as a template." "Worse than that," Accelerator replied, his eyes narrowing at another screen. "They're incorporating child error brain tissue samples into the integration matrix." "Child errors?" Naruto asked. "Orphans," Misaka explained, her voice tight with anger. "Studies using brain tissue from Academy City's orphan children for experimentation. It's how they created artificial espers in their previous operations." Accelerator's usually bored expression had hardened into cold fury. "I'm ending this now." Before they could formulate a more careful approach, he stepped forward, manipulating the vectors in the ceiling supports. The entire observation platform collapsed into the laboratory, creating instant chaos as researchers scrambled away from falling debris. "Subtle," Misaka muttered, generating an electromagnetic field that cleared a path through the destruction. Naruto followed, extending his vector field to deflect flying equipment and protect them from secondary collapses. As the dust settled, they found themselves facing a laboratory in disarray, and there Estina Kihara emerging from a protected control room, looking more annoyed than surprised. "The level 5 triumvirate," she observed, adjusting equipment strapped to her arms. "How predictable. Did you really think we wouldn't anticipate this visit?" "Anticipate this," Accelerator snarled, slamming his palm against the floor. Vectors rippled outward, tearing through equipment and sending researchers flying. There Estina simply smiled as the attack washed over her with no effect. "Selective vector shielding," she explained, tapping a device on her belt. "Derived from our analysis of Uzumaki's reflection field. Fascinating how quickly research progresses with the right data points." She activated something on her wrist controller. Throughout the laboratory, containment pods opened to reveal humanoid figures with visible technological augmentation, artificial bodies with mechanical components integrated into biological systems. "Early prototypes," Estina explained with clinical detachment. "Artificial vessels designed to house synthetic chakra networks. Not quite ready for full deployment, but adequate for field testing against the original template." The artificial espers moved with uncanny coordination, surrounding the three intruders. Their movement seemed jerky but purposeful, and each emitted a faint energy signature that resembled chakra but felt fundamentally wrong, like a distorted echo rather than genuine energy flow. "That's disgusting," Misaka said, electricity gathering around her. "You're trying to create artificial people." "Not people. Weapons." Estina corrected. "Esper abilities are limited by human consciousness and calculation capacity. By removing those limitations and replacing them with programmed parameters, we create perfect ability vessels without psychological constraints." Accelerator's laugh was cold and sharp. "You never learn, do you? Artificial espers always fail because calculation isn't just mathematics, it's intuition, adaptation, creative application. That's why your toy soldiers are about to become scrap." He moved first, using vector control to accelerate into the nearest group of artificial espers. Instead of his usual reflection, he manipulated their own momentum, causing them to collide with each other in a cascade of destructive impacts. Misaka followed, but instead of her standard electrical attacks, she magnetically controlled the metal components in their bodies, creating puppet-like control that turned them against each other. Naruto completed the assault, using chakra-enhanced vector manipulation to create localized distortions in the synthetic chakra networks, causing cascade failures in the artificial Esper's power systems. Their coordinated attack devastated the first wave of prototypes, but Theristina merely observed with scientific interest, making notes on her tablet. "Fascinating adaptations," she commented. "Especially the chakra vector disruption technique. That wasn't in our simulation models." She pressed another control, and a second wave of prototypes emerged, these visibly more advanced, with smoother movements and stronger energy signatures. Mark II variants, she explained. Incorporating real-time adaptation algorithms derived from your previous attack patterns. The new wave attacked with alarming coordination, each targeting a specific weakness they'd observed. Those facing Accelerator moved at carefully calculated angles to exploit gaps in his reflection field. The ones engaging Misaka were insulated against electromagnetic manipulation. Those confronting Naruto generated chaotic, unpredictable vector patterns designed to confuse his calculations. They're learning, Misaka realized, switching tactics to direct electrical strikes rather than magnetic control. Adaptive response programming, Accelerator confirmed, forced to use more direct vector attacks as his subtle manipulations proved ineffective against the improved models. Naruto found himself struggling against opponents who seemed to anticipate his vector field adjustments. Every time he established a stable reflection pattern, they altered their approach to exploit emerging weaknesses. "We need to stop fighting individually," he called to the others. "That's what their adaptation algorithms expect." Misaka caught his meaning immediately. Combined attack pattern. "Like we practiced," Naruto confirmed, moving to create a triangular formation with his allies. Accelerator picked up the strategy quickly. Vector guidance for maximum impact. As the artificial espers converged, the three ability users synchronized their powers. Accelerator created a vector vortex that controlled the battlefield geometry, forcing their opponents into predictable movement channels. Misaka generated a complex electrical field that charged the entire area without discharging. Naruto extended his vector calculation to both powers simultaneously, creating a synchronized matrix that linked all three abilities. "Now," he shouted when the pattern stabilized. The result was spectacular. Misaka's electrical charge discharged along vector paths calculated by both Naruto and Accelerator, creating a devastating web of precisely targeted energy that sliced through the artificial espers with surgical precision. Each bolt followed optimized trajectories, striking critical systems and cascade points that maximized damage while minimizing energy expenditure. The prototype army collapsed, their adaptive algorithms unable to counter an attack pattern that integrated three different calculation methods simultaneously. Theristina's scientific detachment finally cracked, her expression showing genuine alarm as her creations failed catastrophically. "Impossible," she muttered, fingers flying across her control panel. The probability of spontaneous triaxial ability integration without pre-established harmonic resonance is infinitesimal. "You calculated wrong," Naruto said, advancing toward her with his allies flanking him. "Because you're still thinking about abilities as isolated systems. That's where all you researchers go wrong. Powers don't exist in isolation," Misaka continued, electricity still crackling around her. "They're extensions of the people using them. Our connection isn't about calculation compatibility, it's about trust. A concept Kiharas consistently fail to understand," Accelerator finished, looking almost bored again now that the fight was concluding. "Which is why you keep creating impressive failures instead of genuine breakthroughs." Theristina's scientific curiosity seemed to overcome her tactical concerns. Fascinating hypothesis. The emotional component as catalyst for ability resonance. She made notes even as they approached. "This requires further investigation." "There won't be further investigation," Misaka stated flatly. "Your research ends now." does it? Therestina smiled thinly. You've destroyed some prototypes and one research facility. Study has dozens of both. And now we have empirical data on trilateral ability integration, an unexpected bonus. She pressed a final button on her controller. This particular experiment has concluded. I look forward to our next interaction. The laboratory's lights flashed red as containment barriers slammed into place around the central research console, protecting not Therestina, but the core data systems. Secondary explosions began rippling through outlying sections as another self-destruct sequence initiated. Again with the dramatic exits, Misaka muttered, generating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the nearest explosive devices. Naruto extended his vector field to contain blast pressure from detonations they couldn't prevent. Accelerator manipulated structural vectors to maintain building integrity as they navigated toward the exit. The primary research data is being transmitted off-site, Accelerator noted, pointing to active network connections on still-functioning displays. Standard Kihara protocol, sacrifice the facility, preserve the intelligence. Let it go, Naruto decided as the structural integrity continued to deteriorate. We've confirmed what they're doing. That's enough for now. They escaped the collapsing facility with seconds to spare, emerging into the night air as anti-skill forces arrived in response to the explosions. From a distance, they watched the research bunker implode into itself, leaving little evidence of what had transpired inside. Study will go underground again, Misaka predicted as they gave abbreviated statements to anti-skill officers. Rebuild, adapt their approach based on what they learned tonight. They always do, Accelerator agreed. But they'll be more cautious now that they know we can coordinate effectively. The artificial chakra networks are the real concern, Naruto pointed out. Even with limited data, they've made progress toward replicating aspects of my ability. If they perfect that technology. They won't, Accelerator stated with cold certainty. I'm putting Kihara Therestina on my personal problem list. The next facility won't self-destruct quickly enough to protect her. With that ominous promise, he departed, leaving Naruto and Misaka to complete the official incident report for Academy City authorities. As they walked back toward the city center, Misaka broke the comfortable silence that had settled between them. That combination attack was incredible, she said. I've never felt that level of precision with my electricity before. It was like our abilities were speaking the same language, Naruto agreed. Your electricity, my vectors, even Accelerator's calculations, all perfectly synchronized. Dr. Yoshikawa will want to study the effect extensively, Misaka noted, though without her usual reluctance regarding research. Probably, Naruto conceded. But tonight proved something important beyond the science. What's that? That powers from our different worlds can work together better than either can work alone. He grinned. Not bad for a ninja exchange program, right? Misaka's laugh was genuine, the most relaxed sound he'd heard from her since they'd met. Not bad at all, Vector Boy. Not bad at all. As they reached the city limits, Academy City's lights creating a technological aurora against the night sky, Naruto felt a sense of genuine connection, not just to Misaka, but to the possibility that their two worlds could learn from each other in ways neither had anticipated. The exchange program had become something far more significant than diplomatic relations or research opportunity. It had become a bridge between power systems, philosophies, and people that might change both worlds forever. Whether study understood that potential or not, Naruto and Misaka did, and that understanding would shape whatever came next in their increasingly intertwined paths. Chapter 3, Vector Storm, Incoming. Naruto dropped to the ground as a pulse of concentrated energy scorched the air where his head had been seconds before. Rolling to his feet, he extended his vector field outward, catching the next blast and redirecting it back at its source. The study operative dove for cover as her own attack demolished the wall behind her. I've got 3 more on the west side, Misaka's voice crackled through his earpiece. They're using some kind of chakra dampening technology. My electricity isn't affecting them normally. Same here, Naruto replied, vaulting over a barricade. Their equipment is disrupting my vector calculations. It's like they've found the frequency between Esper abilities and chakra. What had begun as a routine patrol through District 7 had quickly devolved into an ambush. Study operatives had emerged from seemingly nowhere, equipped with technology they'd never encountered before, devices that specifically targeted the integration points between Naruto's chakra system and Academy City's Esper calculations. 3 weeks had passed since their raid on the aerospace facility, and study had been ominously silent, until today. Naruto rounded a corner to find Misaka pinned down behind an overturned maintenance vehicle, electricity crackling ineffectually against the operative's specialized shielding. He slid into position beside her. Their equipment is neutralizing standard attacks, she reported, frustration evident in her voice. It's like they've studied our exact frequencies. Then let's change the frequency, Naruto suggested. Remember the combination technique we developed last week? The one Dr. Yoshikawa couldn't properly measure. Misaka's eyes lit up with understanding. Vector storm variant. But we've never tried it in combat conditions. No time like the present. She nodded, electricity gathering around her hands in a concentrated sphere while Naruto established a complex vector field that encompassed both of them. The study operatives sensed the power buildup and intensified their assault, energy weapons firing in coordinated bursts designed to disrupt their concentration. Ready? Naruto asked, fine-tuning his vector calculations. Now. Misaka released her electrical charge, but instead of projecting it directly, she fed it into Naruto's vector field. His calculations caught the electricity, splitting it into thousands of microscopic current paths that spiraled outward in a pattern too complex for the study countermeasures to analyze in real time. The resulting attack resembled a storm of blue-white lightning that curved around barriers, ignored shielding, and struck with surgical precision. Study operatives collapsed as their equipment short-circuited and their nervous systems received carefully calibrated electrical pulses that rendered them unconscious without causing permanent harm. As the last operative fell, Naruto and Misaka emerged cautiously from cover. That worked better than expected, Misaka observed, examining the disabled technology. Though I'm more concerned about how they knew exactly where to find us. And how their equipment was specifically designed to counter our combined abilities, Naruto added, collecting one of the devices for analysis. Someone's been studying our training sessions. They secured the unconscious operatives for anti-skill pickup, then contacted Dr. Yoshikawa. Bring the equipment to the secure lab immediately, she instructed after hearing their description. And don't discuss what happened with anyone, not even judgment or anti-skill, until we understand what we're dealing with. The urgency in her voice was unsettling. Typically unflappable, Dr. Yoshikawa sounded genuinely alarmed by the technological implications of the attack. This shouldn't be possible, Dr. Yoshikawa murmured, examining the captured device under specialized scanning equipment. The integration algorithms are years beyond current Academy City technology. Naruto and Misaka watched as she methodically disassembled the equipment, analyzing each component with increasing concern. What exactly are we looking at? Misaka asked. A hybridized dampening field generator, Yoshikawa explained, displaying a holographic schematic. It creates interference patterns specifically tuned to the harmonic frequency between Esper calculation fields and chakra networks. In normal human language? Naruto prompted. It's technology designed to disrupt the exact point where your two power systems integrate, she clarified. Which means someone has not only been observing your combined techniques but has developed a fundamental understanding of how chakra and personal reality interact on a quantum level. Study's research is progressing faster than we thought, Misaka concluded. This isn't study technology, Yoshikawa said grimly, pointing to microscopic markings on a central component. At least, not exclusively. These manufacturing signatures indicate Academy City military development protocols. Level 7 classification. Meaning this technology has been developed with official sanction at the highest levels. Yoshikawa's expression darkened. Someone inside Academy City's administration is either working with study or pursuing parallel research. The implications were chilling. If rogue researchers had official backing, their resources and protection would be virtually unlimited. Could it be Kihara family influence? Naruto suggested, recalling the extensive connections their Estina had hinted at. Possibly, but even they don't have unilateral authority over level 7 projects. Yoshikawa continued examining components. This would require board of directors approval and, she stopped suddenly, focusing on a particular circuit. What is it? Misaka asked, noting her changed demeanor. This integration matrix. I've seen this design approach before. Yoshikawa accessed a secure database, comparing schematics. It's Ryunosuke Shizuri's work. Who? Former Academy City Research Director. Brilliant but unstable, Yoshikawa explained. He was dismissed 5 years ago after proposing forced integration of Esper abilities into non-Esper subjects. His methods were deemed unethical even by Academy City's flexible standards. And now he's working with study? Naruto asked. Worse, Yoshikawa replied. Based on these components, I believe he may be running study, using their Estina Kihara as his public face while he develops technology combining Academy City's Esper science with your world's chakra systems. She initiated a secure communication protocol, contacting Academy City security directly. We need to brief the board immediately. If Shizuri has gained access to level 7 development resources, the implications go well beyond unauthorized research. The board of directors convened in a secure conference room deep beneath the windowless building. Only 7 members were physically present, the others attending via encrypted holographic projection. Naruto and Misaka stood uncomfortably as the focus of 12 calculating gazes. These accusations are extraordinary, stated Director Oyafune, a middle-aged woman with a severe expression. Ryunosuke Shizuri was thoroughly investigated after his dismissal. His access to Academy City resources was completely terminated. The evidence is conclusive, Dr. Yoshikawa replied, displaying the analysis results. The integration matrix bears his unique algorithmic signature. No other researcher approaches quantum field manipulation using these specific mathematical progressions. What's most concerning, added anti-skill Commander Wataru, is that the components show legitimate production timestamps from our level 7 facilities. Someone with significant authority has been providing Shizuri with resources and clearance. The directors exchanged troubled glances. What exactly is Shizuri attempting to accomplish? Asked Director Kaizumi. Esper Chakra integration has research value, certainly, but why pursue it through clandestine means when we have an official exchange program already established? Because his goals go beyond research, Naruto interjected, earning disapproving looks from several directors. Sorry for speaking out of turn, but based on what we've seen, Shizuri isn't just studying the interaction between our power systems, he's weaponizing it. Explain, Director Oyafune demanded. Misaka stepped forward. The devices used against us weren't designed for containment or study. They were battlefield countermeasures, specifically engineered to neutralize combined chakra Esper abilities in combat situations. You develop countermeasures when you're preparing for conflict, Naruto continued. Study's pattern has been consistent: gather data on our abilities, develop technology that can replicate or counter those abilities, then test that technology in controlled confrontations. They're preparing for something bigger, Misaka concluded. Something that requires understanding exactly how our powers work, and how to neutralize them if necessary. Director Kaizumi leaned forward. What do you propose? A coordinated operation, Commander Wataru answered. We've identified 3 potential facilities where Shizuri might be operating based on power consumption patterns and secured supply deliveries. We need authorization for simultaneous raids to prevent evidence destruction. After deliberation, the board granted limited approval. Anti-Skill could investigate the facilities but would be accompanied by board observers to ensure proper protocols. The operation would commence the following morning. As they left the meeting, Misaka pulled Naruto aside. "They're stalling," she said quietly. "Did you notice how unsurprised some of them seemed? They already knew about Shizuri." "I noticed," Naruto replied. "Which means we can't rely on official channels. Whatever Shizuri's planning, it happens tomorrow, not the day after. So what's our move?" "We go tonight," Naruto decided. "Just us. Find Shizuri before the official operation gives someone time to warn him." Misaka grinned. "Breaking protocol to prevent a disaster. You're starting to think like an Academy City student." "And you were just suggesting we ignore official orders," Naruto countered. "Sounds like Konoha's rubbing off on you." Their shared laughter masked the tension of what lay ahead, but both understood the stakes. If someone on the board was protecting Shizuri, the official operation would find nothing, and they'd lose their chance to stop whatever he was planning. Nightfall found them on a rooftop overlooking Facility 23B, the most likely of the three identified locations based on Waharu's analysis of power fluctuations and security patterns. "Security is lighter than I expected," Misaka observed, scanning with her electromagnetic sense. "Only standard automated systems, minimal personnel." "Which either means this place is a decoy," Naruto replied, "or they're so confident in their technical countermeasures that they don't need human security. Let's find out." They approached cautiously, using Misaka's electromagnetic manipulation to create blind spots in the surveillance network while Naruto's vector control neutralized physical security measures. The facility appeared to be a standard Academy City research outpost, unremarkable except for the advanced security protocols protecting seemingly ordinary equipment. "Something's off," Naruto whispered as they navigated the quiet corridors. "This place feels empty." "But the power consumption is enormous," Misaka replied, indicating readings on her scanner. "Something's drawing massive energy deeper in the facility." They followed the power signatures to a heavily secured door with both electronic and physical locking mechanisms, far more protection than the rest of the facility combined. "Definitely hiding something important," Misaka murmured, carefully interfacing with the electronic lock using her ability. "These encryption protocols are military grade." While she worked on the electronic components, Naruto analyzed the physical lock mechanism with his vector sense. "The mechanical system has pressure sensors that will trigger if we try to force it. We need to disarm both simultaneously." "On 3, Misaka suggested. "I'll neutralize the electronic countermeasures while you manipulate the mechanical vectors to simulate authorized entry." Their coordinated approach worked perfectly. Misaka's precise electrical manipulation disabled the digital security while Naruto's vector control adjusted the pressure sensors and mechanical components to register as normal operation. The heavy door slid open silently. "Whoa," Naruto breathed as they entered. The chamber beyond was enormous, far larger than the exterior of the facility suggested, extending deep underground in a vast circular space. Dominating the center was what appeared to be a massive particle accelerator ring, but modified with components neither recognized. Surrounding it were workstations displaying complex equations and energy pattern analyses. "This isn't just a research facility," Misaka realized, examining the equipment. "It's a dimensional resonance laboratory." "A what?" "Technology designed to analyze and manipulate the barriers between dimensional planes," she explained, recognizing the theoretical frameworks from advanced physics classes. "Academy City has been researching dimensional boundaries for decades, but actual manipulation was considered impossible without catastrophic energy requirements." Naruto approached the central console, finding detailed analyses of what appeared to be the barrier between their two worlds. "Looks like they found a shortcut. These readings compare energy signatures between chakra and esper abilities, identifying resonance patterns, which would allow controlled breaching of dimensional boundaries using significantly less power," Misaka concluded, her expression growing alarmed. "They're not just studying the interaction between our power systems, they're trying to create a permanent connection between our worlds." "But why?" Naruto wondered. The exchange program already established diplomatic contact. "Limited, controlled contact," Misaka corrected. This would be something else entirely. Their investigation was interrupted by a slow, deliberate clapping. They spun to find a man standing on an observation platform above them, tall, with silver-streaked dark hair and penetrating eyes that studied them with clinical interest. "Impressive deduction," he commented, his voice carrying easily in the cavernous space. "Though not entirely accurate." Ryunosuke Shizuri, Misaka identified, electricity gathering around her defensively. "The infamous railgun and the vector manipulation prodigy," Shizuri replied with a slight bow. "I've been studying your abilities with great interest. You've saved me considerable research time through your collaborative experiments. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here?" Naruto demanded, expanding his vector field in preparation for potential attacks. "Something beyond Academy City's limited vision," Shizuri explained, descending a staircase with unhurried confidence. "They see the exchange program as a diplomatic exercise, a cautious sharing of knowledge between separate worlds. I see the potential for true integration. By forcibly connecting our worlds," Misaka challenged. "By removing the artificial separation between them," Shizuri corrected. "Did you know that your worlds once existed in the same dimensional plane? The separation occurred millennia ago, when a catastrophic release of natural energy created a dimensional fracture." He gestured to historical data displayed on nearby screens. "One world evolved toward technological manipulation of reality through calculation. The other developed biological channeling of natural energy. But both began from the same source, the fundamental quantum structure that underlies all reality." "Even if that's true," Naruto said, "forcing them back together after thousands of years of separate development would be catastrophic." "Only without proper preparation," Shizuri countered. "Which is why I've developed integration technology based on your unique abilities. You, Uzumaki, represent the perfect bridge, chakra-based vector manipulation that functions through calculation. Your very existence proves harmonic integration is possible. So studies attacks, the surveillance, the countermeasures, all to gather data for this project?" Misaka asked incredulously. "Precisely." Shizuri seemed pleased by her understanding. Each confrontation provided valuable insights into how your abilities interact under stress conditions. Essential data for calibrating the dimensional resonance array. "And the board? Do they know what you're planning?" Naruto pressed. "Some suspect. Others actively support my work while maintaining plausible deniability." Shizuri's smile was cold. "Academy City's leadership understands the strategic value of being first to establish dominance over an integrated dimensional plane. They're using you," Misaka realized. "Once the connection is established, they'll deploy their own technology to control access points." "Perhaps they believe so," Shizuri acknowledged with a dismissive wave. "Just as the ninja villages might imagine they could control such a merger from their side. But the reality will be far more democratic. When dimensional barriers dissolve, power hierarchies reorganize based on adaptability, not prior authority." As he spoke, the facility's systems began powering up, indicators shifting from standby to active status. "You're starting the process now?" Naruto asked, alarmed. "The resonance sequence initiated the moment you entered the facility," Shizuri revealed. "Your combined presence, active chakra and esper fields in proximity, provided the final calibration data I needed. The process is already irreversible." The massive accelerator ring hummed with increasing energy, creating visible distortions in the air as dimensional frequencies began to align. Monitoring stations displayed cascade patterns of quantum resonance spreading outward from the facility. "We have to stop this," Misaka said urgently. "The uncontrolled merger of our worlds could destabilize both realities." "Then I suggest you leave quickly," Shizuri advised, retreating toward a secured exit. "The dimensional boundary dissolution begins in this facility and expands outward. Those caught at the epicenter may experience unpredictable effects on their personal energy systems." As security barriers slammed down between them, isolating Shizuri from the main chamber, Naruto and Misaka faced the accelerating resonance phenomenon. Can we shut it down? Naruto asked, examining the control systems. Not conventionally, Misaka replied, attempting to interface with the main computer. He's locked out the control systems and initiated a self-sustaining resonance cascade. Even cutting power won't stop it now. The energy buildup intensified, creating visible tears in spacetime around the accelerator ring, microscopic at first, then expanding as the resonance frequency stabilized. Through these tears, they glimpsed fragments of another reality, forests, mountains, structures that resembled Konoha architecture. The worlds are starting to bleed into each other, Naruto observed, recognizing landmarks from his home village. And the effect is accelerating exponentially, Misaka added, checking monitors. At this rate, we have maybe 15 minutes before the dimensional boundary collapses completely within a 5-kilometer radius. After that, the effect will spread worldwide within hours. Naruto studied the resonance pattern, his vector sense detecting the complex interplay of energies driving the phenomenon. It's using our own power signatures as a template, he realized. The resonance is calibrated to the specific frequency created when my chakra-based vectors interact with your esper-based electricity. Then theoretically, we could disrupt it by generating a counter-frequency, Misaka suggested, her mind racing through calculations. Not just disrupt it, Naruto said slowly, an idea forming. We could redirect it. If the resonance is based on our combined frequency, we might be able to manipulate its vector, change its direction from merging to stabilizing. A dimensional vector redirection? Misaka looked skeptical. That would require precision beyond anything we've attempted. We'd need to synchronize perfectly, Naruto acknowledged. Not just our abilities, but our intentions, our calculations, everything. They exchanged a long look, mutual understanding passing between them. In the weeks they'd spent training together, their abilities had grown increasingly complementary, each enhancing the other's strengths and compensating for weaknesses. But what they were considering now went beyond practice techniques, it required complete trust and perfect harmony. Vector Storm, Misaka said finally. The full version, not the combat variant. Naruto nodded. All or nothing. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of the accelerator ring, where the dimensional tears were most pronounced. The facility trembled as reality itself began fracturing, energy cascades creating unpredictable effects throughout the chamber, gravity fluctuations, temporal distortions, spontaneous matter conversion as the laws of physics from both worlds competed for dominance. Ready? Naruto called, extending his vector field to its maximum range. On your mark, Misaka replied, generating her most precise electrical field, carefully calibrated to match his vector frequency. Now. They initiated simultaneously, Naruto projecting his vector field into the dimensional resonance pattern while Misaka fed her electrical energy into his calculations. But unlike previous combinations, they didn't simply merge their abilities, they synchronized their consciousness, their understanding, their very perception of reality. The vector storm they created wasn't just a technique but a fundamental rewriting of the energy patterns driving Shizuri's resonance cascade. Naruto's vectors caught the dimensional frequency, not reflecting or redirecting it, but reshaping its fundamental properties. Misaka's electricity provided the precise calibration needed, adjusting quantum fluctuations at the subatomic level. The dimensional tiers began responding, not closing completely, but stabilizing, their chaotic expansion resolving into controlled connection points between worlds. Instead of an uncontrolled merger, they were creating regulated bridges, stable pathways that preserved the distinction between realities while allowing controlled interaction. It's working. Misaka shouted over the thunderous energy discharge. The resonance is recalibrating. Not enough, Naruto replied, straining to maintain the complex vector calculations. The original pattern is still too strong. We need more precise control. As they pushed their abilities to their limits, an unexpected presence joined them. Accelerator stepped through one of the stabilized tiers, his expression changing from boredom to intense focus as he assessed the situation. Amateur dimensional manipulation, he commented drily, stepping between them. You're trying to control the resonance cascade without accounting for quantum tunneling effects. Without further explanation, he placed one hand on Naruto's shoulder and the other on Misaka's, adding his vector calculation to their combined effort. The effect was immediate and dramatic, with Accelerator's processing power integrated into their vector storm. The dimensional frequency responded with unprecedented precision. Triple vector control, Accelerator instructed. Uzumaki stabilizes the macro pattern, Railgun calibrates the frequency, I'll handle the quantum fluctuations. Their three abilities synchronized, creating a harmonized calculation field that encompassed the entire facility. The chaotic dimensional tiers resolved into organized connection points, stable, controlled passages between worlds that maintained the distinct integrity of each reality while allowing regulated transfer. How did you know to come? Misaka gasped, maintaining her concentration despite her surprise at his arrival. Ueharu contacted me after you two went off-grid, Accelerator replied, his calculation ability seemingly effortless despite the complexity. Figured you'd find trouble worth my time. The resonance cascade reached its critical point, the moment where the dimensional boundary would either collapse completely or stabilize in its new configuration. Their combined vector storm technique held steady, guiding the process toward controlled stabilization rather than chaotic merger. With a final surge of power that momentarily overloaded every system in the facility, the dimensional resonance locked into its new pattern. The violent energy fluctuations subsided, leaving a series of stable, regulated connection points floating in mid-air throughout the chamber, windows between worlds that no longer threatened to tear reality apart. As they released their abilities, exhaustion hit all three simultaneously. Naruto and Misaka collapsed to their knees, while Accelerator merely looked slightly winded. What exactly did we just do? Naruto asked, staring at the dimensional windows surrounding them. Created stable transit points between dimensional planes, Accelerator explained matter-of-factly. Basically doorways between your world and ours that won't destabilize the quantum framework of either reality. Instead of forcing the worlds to merge, Misaka realized, we created controlled access points. Which was probably Shizuri's actual goal, Accelerator noted. The catastrophic merger scenario was likely a failsafe to ensure he maintained control of the technology. If he couldn't monopolize dimensional access, he'd create a crisis that forced integration on his terms. Speaking of Shizuri, Naruto said, getting to his feet, where did he go? An alarm from one of the still-functioning monitors answered his question. Security footage showed Shizuri entering what appeared to be a specialized transport chamber, one connected to the dimensional array. He's attempting transit through an unstabilized connection point, Misaka realized, checking the coordinates. He's trying to reach Konoha directly. With unstable dimensional parameters, the results would be unpredictable, Accelerator noted with clinical detachment. Best case, he arrives intact but with his biological system scrambled. Worst case, quantum dispersion across multiple dimensional planes. Either way, he's escaping jurisdiction, Naruto pointed out. And potentially bringing dangerous technology directly to my world. They rushed to the transport chamber, finding it activated but empty. Shizuri had already initiated transit. Monitoring systems showed his pattern mid-transfer between dimensions, approaching the Konoha coordinate. Can we intercept him? Naruto asked urgently. Theoretically, Accelerator replied, examining the system. The transit isn't instantaneous, it follows quantum probability paths through dimensional space. With proper vector calculation, we could redirect his trajectory. Or we could follow him, Misaka suggested. The system is calibrated for safe transit now that we've stabilized the connection points. Both, Naruto decided. Accelerator, can you redirect him away from Konoha? Buy us time to pursue. Accelerator nodded, already interfacing with the transport controls. I can divert his probability path toward an uninhabited region approximately 50 kilometers from your village. The recalculation will slow his transit, giving you about a 30-minute head start. That's all we need, Misaka said with determination. Once we're in the ninja world, Naruto's knowledge of the terrain gives us the advantage. While Accelerator worked on redirecting Shizuri's transit path, Naruto and Misaka prepared for immediate pursuit. The dimensional technology was sophisticated but straightforward to operate now that stable connection points had been established. The transit process interfaces directly with your personal energy fields, Accelerator explained, finalizing his calculations. Your chakra and esper patterns will serve as stabilizing anchors during the transfer. Maintain conscious awareness of your energy signatures to ensure coherent reassembly. That sounds concerning, Misaka commented. Standard dimensional transit protocols, Accelerator replied with a shrug. Just don't let your concentration lapse mid-transfer, or you might arrive missing non-essential components. What counts as non-essential? Naruto asked warily. You'll find out if you don't focus, Accelerator said, his version of a joke. Shizuri's trajectory is now locked to alternate coordinates. You're clear for pursuit. As they prepared to enter the transport chamber, Accelerator added, I'll secure this facility and brief anti-skill. The official operation begins in 4 hours. By then, I want all evidence of what really happened here sanitized and replaced with a more politically acceptable narrative. You're manipulating the official record? Misaka asked, surprised by his administrative approach. Stable dimensional access points are too valuable to leave in the hands of bureaucrats or military opportunists, Accelerator stated flatly. Until we understand the full implications, control stays with those who created them, which means you too, primarily. With that unexpectedly supportive declaration, he activated the transport sequence. The chamber filled with specialized energy fields that interfaced directly with their personal energy systems, Naruto's chakra network and Misaka's AIM diffusion field. The sensation was disorienting but not painful, like being gently disassembled at the molecular level while remaining completely aware of the process. Focus on your core energy signature, Naruto reminded Misaka, sensing her momentary panic as the transit began. Think of it like maintaining an electrical current at precise voltage. She nodded, her expression settling into determined concentration as their physical forms converted to energy patterns that aligned with the dimensional frequency between worlds. The transport chamber faded from view, replaced by a swirling vortex of quantum possibilities, glimpses of different points along the dimensional boundary where their worlds intersected. The transit itself took both an instant and an eternity, time behaving non-linearly in the space between realities. When the process completed, they materialized in a forest clearing Naruto immediately recognized as part of the Land of Fire, approximately a day's journey from Konoha. We made it, he confirmed, orienting himself by the position of familiar mountain ranges visible through the trees. And in one piece, apparently. That was. Misaka paused, searching for words as she steadied herself against a tree, intense. Do people in Academy City do that regularly? Dimensional transit is theoretical technology, she answered her own question. Or at least, it was until today. Naruto scanned the surrounding forest with both his physical senses and chakra awareness. No sign of Shizuri yet. Accelerator's redirection worked, we should have about half an hour before he arrives somewhere in this region. Can you sense the exact location? Not precisely, Naruto admitted. But there's a disturbance in the natural energy about 5 kilometers northeast. That might be where the dimensional frequency is strongest, likely his arrival point. They set off immediately, moving through the forest with practiced efficiency. Weeks of training together had taught them to complement each other's movement styles. Naruto's chakra-enhanced agility combined with Misaka's precision electromagnetic sensing created an effective reconnaissance team. As they approached the projected arrival coordinates, Misaka detected an electromagnetic anomaly. Something's generating a significant field ahead, technology that doesn't belong in this environment. Naruto nodded grimly. Shizuri must have brought equipment with him. But how? The transit should have only transferred his biological pattern. Unless he integrated technological components with his biological system, Misaka suggested. Like the artificial espers study was developing. The implication was disturbing, Shizuri might have modified himself with the very technology he was researching, becoming a living integration of biological and technological systems. They proceeded more cautiously, using natural cover to approach the anomaly source. In a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees, they found evidence of a recent dimensional transit, scorch marks in a perfect circle, vegetation displaying unusual growth patterns, and at the center, a figure kneeling as if recovering from the journey. Ryunosuke Shizuri had indeed arrived ahead of schedule, but the transit had clearly taken a toll. His appearance had changed subtly, his skin pallid with visible technological components integrated at his temples, wrists, and along his spine. He was connecting various devices to what appeared to be an advanced communication array. Dimensional stabilization complete, he murmured to himself, unaware of their presence. Local energy field analysis initiating. Chakra density in this region exceeds predictive models by 17%. Adjusting integration parameters accordingly. He's talking like a machine, Misaka whispered, scanning the equipment with her electromagnetic sense. Whatever he did to himself to survive the transit, he's not entirely human anymore, Naruto replied quietly. We need to stop him before he activates that equipment. Before they could formulate a plan, Shizuri suddenly stiffened, turning directly toward their hidden position. Uzumaki Naruto. Misaka Mikoto. Your pursuit was factored into my calculations, though your arrival timing exceeds predicted parameters, he called out, his voice carrying an unnatural resonance. Your presence is actually convenient, I require samples of your integrated energy signatures to calibrate the final phase. Abandoning stealth, they emerged from cover, positioning themselves to flank Shizuri and his equipment. The dimensional merger failed, Misaka stated flatly. Your resonance cascade was redirected into stable connection points. Whatever you're planning now won't work. On the contrary, Shizuri replied, his expression eerily calm. You've simply accomplished phase 1 more elegantly than my approach would have. Stable connection points are more useful than a chaotic merger for the controlled integration I envision. And what exactly is that? Naruto demanded, his vector field expanded and ready. The next evolution of conscious reality, Shizuri explained, gesturing to his equipment. This world's natural energy, chakra, represents biological integration with quantum reality. Academy City's Esper abilities represent technological manipulation of the same fundamental forces. Apart, each has limitations. Combined. You want to forcibly evolve both worlds using technology that you've barely tested, Misaka interrupted. Technology that's already transformed you into something not quite human. A necessary adaptation, Shizuri acknowledged, touching the visible implants at his temple. Dimensional transit without stabilized connection points required biological integration with the transit technology. A small price for being the first to cross the boundary unassisted. As he spoke, the equipment around him activated fully, projecting what appeared to be a scaled-down version of the resonance field they'd encountered in the Academy City facility. This array will amplify my integrated signature, creating a cascading template that rewrites local reality parameters, Shizuri explained, his tone disturbingly clinical as energy began swirling around him. Those within the effect radius will experience spontaneous integration of chakra and Esper calculation capabilities. You're forcing evolution without consent, Naruto realized. Turning people into hybrids like yourself. Offering advancement, Shizuri corrected. Starting with this region, then expanding globally through the dimensional connection points you so helpfully stabilized. The resonance field intensified, creating visible distortions in the surrounding environment. Trees began exhibiting unusual growth patterns, wildlife fled in panic, and the very air seemed to crystallize into visible energy currents as reality itself responded to the forced integration of different dimensional properties. We need to shut down that equipment, Misaka said urgently, electricity gathering around her hands. Direct attacks won't work, Naruto cautioned, his vector sense analyzing the resonance pattern. The field is designed to absorb and redirect energy, similar to my reflection but operating on dimensional frequencies. Shizuri smiled thinly. Precisely. Conventional attacks will simply strengthen the integration field. Your abilities in particular, being representative patterns of both worlds, provide ideal amplification material. To demonstrate, he extended his hand toward them. The resonance field pulsed, and Naruto felt his vector calculations suddenly distorted, while Misaka winced as her electrical control fluctuated unpredictably. He's interfacing directly with our ability frequencies, Misaka realized, struggling to stabilize her power. Using the same principles we discovered in our combined techniques, Naruto added, his vector field wavering as Shizuri's technology introduced calculation errors. But corrupting the integration instead of harmonizing it. Shizuri continued manipulating the resonance field, expanding its influence outward. The effect on the environment became more pronounced, plants morphed into hybrid forms exhibiting both biological growth and mathematical pattern organization, while animals that hadn't fled displayed sudden, erratic capability shifts. The field is accelerating, Shizuri noted with clinical satisfaction. Estimated coverage of primary population centers within 47 minutes. Full global integration within 12 hours. We can't let that happen, Naruto said, meeting Misaka's eyes with silent understanding. They needed their ultimate technique, the full vector storm they developed through weeks of practice, refined in the dimensional facility, but now without Accelerator's additional calculation power. Success would require perfect synchronization under the disruptive influence of Shizuri's resonance field. Can you maintain calculation integrity under his interference? Misaka asked quietly. Not alone, Naruto admitted. But together, if we completely synchronize our patterns, we might generate a counter-frequency that his system can't disrupt. They began circling Shizuri and his equipment, carefully positioning themselves for optimal field generation. Shizuri watched with scientific curiosity, apparently content to observe their strategy while his integration field continued expanding. Fascinating, he commented. You're attempting synchronized counterresonance. A theoretically sound approach, though practically impossible given the complexity of dimensional frequency manipulation. We've done the impossible before, Naruto replied, carefully modulating his vector field to minimize interference from Shizuri's technology. Like stabilizing dimensional connection points that your best scientists thought would tear reality apart, Misaka added, her electricity crackling in precisely controlled patterns. Those were controlled conditions, Shizuri pointed out. This environment introduces countless variables, natural energy fluctuations, biological interference patterns, quantum uncertainty magnified by dimensional proximity. Despite his dismissive words, Naruto noticed Shizuri adjusting his equipment, strengthening its defensive protocols. Their approach had him concerned, despite his confidence. When they reached optimal positions, Naruto and Misaka initiated their vector storm technique, not with dramatic movements or showy power displays, but with quiet, absolute focus. Naruto extended his vector field not outward toward Shizuri, but inward toward Misaka, creating a calculation bridge between their abilities. Misaka responded by generating her most precisely calibrated electrical field, feeding it into Naruto's vector calculations not as raw power but as a harmonic resonance pattern, the exact opposite frequency of Shizuri's integration field. At first, nothing visible happened. The forest remained distorted by Shizuri's expanding effect, his equipment continued pulsing with dimensional energy, and their own abilities seemed to flow between them without external impact. Then Shizuri frowned, checking readings on his integrated displays. Interesting. You're creating a nullification wave using harmonic counterfrequency. Inefficient but theoretically viable. He adjusted controls, intensifying his resonance field. Unfortunately, a simple amplitude increase overcomes frequency-based countermeasures. The distortion around them intensified, creating physical pressure that pushed against their counterresonance. Naruto felt his vector calculations straining to maintain coherence, while Misaka's electrical control fluctuated under the increased interference. It's too strong, she called, her voice tight with effort. We can't match his amplitude with just counterfrequency. Then we change approach, Naruto replied, adapting his vector calculations on the fly. Don't fight his frequency, synchronize with it, then redirect. Understanding immediately, Misaka shifted her electrical pattern to match Shizuri's resonance exactly, not opposing but mimicking it. Naruto simultaneously adjusted his vector field to create not a counterwave but a redirection matrix that would catch Shizuri's pattern and turn it back on itself. The effect was immediate and dramatic. As their perfectly synchronized abilities interfaced with Shizuri's resonance field, they didn't oppose its expansion but instead created a feedback loop that redirected its energy inward, back toward its source. Shizuri's eyes widened as he recognized the technique. Vector reflection at the dimensional frequency level, he murmured, genuine admiration in his voice despite the danger to his plans. Brilliant adaptation. He frantically adjusted his equipment, trying to break the feedback loop, but the redirected energy had already begun affecting his integrated systems. The technological components visible on his body flickered erratically as conflicting frequencies disrupted their function. "You don't understand what you're preventing," Shizuri called, his voice distorting as his systems destabilized. "The integration is inevitable, natural progression of both our worlds. I'm merely accelerating what will eventually happen regardless." "Maybe so," Naruto replied, maintaining the vector redirection despite increasing strain. "But evolution should happen through choice and understanding, not forced conversion." "And if dimensional integration is our future," Misaka added, her electricity weaving seamlessly with Naruto's vectors, "it should emerge from cooperation between worlds, not domination of one by the other." Their combined technique intensified, creating a perfect reflective loop that contained Shizuri's resonance field and turned its full power back upon its source. The equipment surrounding him began to overload, components failing as they processed more energy than their design parameters allowed. Shizuri made a final, desperate adjustment to his systems, redirecting all power into what appeared to be a personal shielding device. "You may stop this attempt," he acknowledged, his voice increasingly mechanical as his human aspects diminished under system stress. "But the principle remains valid. Our worlds are converging, stable connection points ensure interaction will continue. Integration will happen, with or without guidance." The resonance field collapsed inward with devastating force, contained by Naruto and Misaka's vector storm technique to affect only Shizuri and his equipment. The implosion created a momentary tear in dimensional space, a swirling vortex that pulled the destabilized technology into itself. Shizuri, his body now more machine than human as emergency protocols activated within his integrated systems, was drawn toward the collapsing dimensional tear. "The irony," he noted with detached interest, "consumed by the very boundary I sought to eliminate." As the vortex pulled him in, he fixed Naruto and Misaka with a final, calculating gaze. "Remember, you didn't prevent integration. You merely chose its path. The responsibility for what follows is now yours." With those enigmatic words, he disappeared into the dimensional distortion, which sealed itself with a final pulse of energy that knocked Naruto and Misaka to the ground. The forest clearing fell suddenly, eerily quiet, the only evidence of what had transpired being a perfect circle of crystallized earth where reality itself had been momentarily rewritten. Exhausted, they remained where they'd fallen, the aftermath of their vector storm technique leaving both their abilities temporarily depleted. "Did we just disintegrate him?" Misaka asked after a moment. "I don't think so," Naruto replied, staring at the crystallized circle. "That looked more like uncontrolled dimensional transit. He's somewhere between worlds now, maybe back in Academy City, maybe somewhere else entirely. Either way, his technology is gone, and the forced integration field collapsed." Misaka pushed herself to a sitting position, surveying the damage to the clearing. "Though I'm not sure we fully understood what he was trying to accomplish. Creating hybrid beings that could manipulate reality through both chakra and esper calculations," Naruto summarized. "Essentially, making everyone like me, but artificially, without choice or preparation." "The scary part is, some of his theory made sense," Misaka admitted. "The similarity between our power systems, the complementary aspects we've discovered in our training. That doesn't justify forcing evolution on unwilling subjects, Naruto countered, though without heat. If integration happens, it should develop naturally, through exchange programs, collaborative research, genuine understanding between our worlds. Misaka nodded thoughtfully. Speaking of which, what happens now with those stable connection points we created? The dimensional doorways between Academy City and Konoha. That, said a new voice, is what we need to discuss. They turned to find the third Hokage standing at the edge of the clearing, accompanied by several ANBU agents who had apparently been observing for some time. Hokage-sama, Naruto acknowledged, struggling to his feet despite his exhaustion. I can explain, no need, the Hokage interrupted mildly. We've been monitoring dimensional fluctuations since they began in Academy City. Our sensors detected the transit arrivals and unusual energy patterns. He approached the crystallized circle, examining it with experienced eyes. Ryunosuke Shizuri. We had files on him from previous intelligence exchanges with Academy City. A brilliant but dangerous visionary. You knew about him? Misaka asked, surprised. We suspected his interest in chakra systems when he requested extensive documentation during the initial exchange program negotiations, the Hokage explained. Though we didn't anticipate he'd develop dimensional transit technology so quickly. He turned to face them directly. What concerns me more immediately are the stable connection points you created between our worlds. According to our sensors, there are now 7 permanent dimensional doorways linking specific locations in Konoha with counterparts in Academy City. We didn't exactly plan that, Naruto admitted. We were trying to prevent a catastrophic merger of realities. And succeeded, the Hokage acknowledged. The question is what happens now. Academy City's board of directors has already contacted me through emergency channels, proposing a joint regulatory framework for these connection points. They moved quickly, Misaka noted suspiciously. Almost as if some of them anticipated this outcome, the Hokage agreed with a knowing look. Politics exists in all worlds, it seems. The important question is whether these connection points represent opportunity or threat. Naruto and Misaka exchanged glances, silently communicating their shared experience. Both, they answered simultaneously. The technology could be weaponized, Naruto continued. But it also represents unprecedented opportunity for genuine exchange and understanding between our worlds. The stable connections we created maintain the distinct integrity of each reality while allowing controlled interaction, Misaka added. With proper security protocols, they could revolutionize both worlds positively. The Hokage studied them thoughtfully. You speak with one voice on this matter. Interesting, considering you represent different worlds with historically separate development paths. We've learned a lot from each other, Naruto said simply. So it seems. The Hokage gestured toward Konoha. The board has proposed an expanded exchange program, not just individual representatives, but formal delegations through these new connection points. Scientific collaboration, cultural exchange, even limited trade relationships. And military implications, no doubt, Misaka noted realistically. Inevitably, the Hokage conceded. Though both sides recognize that forced domination attempts would likely destabilize the dimensional connections entirely. He focused on Naruto specifically. Your unique position, understanding both chakra systems and vector manipulation, makes you particularly valuable in this new paradigm. The board has requested you return to Academy City as Konoha's primary representative during the transition period. And me? Misaka asked cautiously. Academy City has formally requested your continued participation in the exchange program, specifically citing your unprecedented ability integration potential with Uzumaki-san. The Hokage's eyes twinkled slightly. Apparently, your collaborative techniques have impressed even Academy City's most skeptical researchers. Naruto found himself grinning despite the gravity of the situation. So our exchange program continues? In expanded form, the Hokage confirmed. Though with significantly increased responsibilities given the dimensional developments. As they began the journey back to Konoha, Misaka fell into step beside Naruto. So, she began casually, ready for another 6 months of research and training? With stable dimensional connections, it's not really another 6 months, Naruto pointed out. More like the beginning of ongoing collaboration. True. She hesitated, then added, that vector storm technique we developed, it has applications beyond what we've explored so far. Dr. Yoshikawa's preliminary analysis suggested we've barely scratched the surface of what integrated abilities can accomplish. Worried about becoming research subjects again? Naruto teased gently. Actually, Misaka replied, surprising him with a genuine smile, I'm looking forward to it. There's something satisfying about breaking physicists' understanding of reality on a regular basis. Naruto laughed. I knew Academy City was rubbing off on you. Next thing you'll be calculating vector equations in your sleep. And you'll be generating electricity without thinking, she countered. That's the point of integration, right? Learning from each other until the boundaries between our abilities become meaningless. Her words echoed Shizuri's final message, though with a fundamentally different understanding of how integration should proceed, not through forced conversion, but through voluntary exchange and mutual growth. As they approached Konoha's gates, one of the newly formed dimensional connection points shimmered visibly in the air nearby, a stable doorway between worlds that represented both challenge and opportunity for the future. Ready for whatever comes next? Naruto asked, pausing before this physical manifestation of their world's new relationship. Misaka considered the shimmering portal, electricity dancing briefly between her fingers. As long as we're tackling it together, she replied. Our abilities seem to work better that way. The vector maelstrom and the railgun, representatives of different worlds finding unexpected harmony in their combined potential. Whatever challenges the dimensional connections might bring, they would face them with the unique integration they discovered together, a partnership that transcended the boundaries between their worlds just as surely as the portals they'd helped create. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.